Hotep.
All right, Hotep, and welcome to our discussion. And this is your brother Wujao, and we're live on YouTube. And like I said before in my previous video, this is basically I think my second or third time actually using my YouTube channel. So is just starting out. I don't have many subscribers. I've been using other people's platforms and channels to, participate in various different things, topics from evolution to genetics to science to especially African history or ancient Kemet language and culture and everything. But I've never used my own channel with my YouTube user. So I'm just now starting out. So, I appreciate anybody who is tuned in and watching. But in light of the recent conversations with, the hashtag ADOS, the movement, the advocacy, there's a lot of information that's being that's brought up, that's talked about. There's a lot of misunderstanding, misinformation that I've seen. There's a lot of people who are supportive. Then there's people who are not supportive. And I've, from time to time, I've chimed in on the conversations between the two. And so I want to, utilize my channel to kind of have these topics of discussions and, anything else that that will come up that I'm interested in, and maybe I feel that other people are interested in and want to have a good discussion about. Now my interest in having these discussions is to have a more slowed down conversational discussion, and on a more mature, more probing level than to just give uninformed opinions or kind of feed into the gossip and the momentum that we're used to on the social media. So I want to change it up a little bit, change the narrative and everything. So I've sent the link out to a few people who I've seen talk about ADOS and everything. And so who do we have here? We have so again, this is your brother Wujao, and I'm basically kind of just rambling on right now. Give people a chance to tune in, maybe on the YouTube channel. Like I said, I haven't. This is not an advertised discussion or anything like that. I did mention it earlier today with a few people, and so I'm live because whatever we talk about, hopefully other people may watch and tune in, because I'm going to give the link for people to come in and be on the panel, because we can have up to 100 people on the panel, and the only thing that we ask is normal, respectful etiquette, communication, where no one's talking over each other, and we just kind of take turns and giving feedback on what each other says. So it's an open discussion, and the topic is ADOS. All right, and hopefully somebody can benefit from watching this live now or as an archive. All right, so yeah, and hopefully people may tune in. So I'll kick it off. So when whoever speaks, the first time you speak, if you don't mind, if you could just introduce, say you give your name or whatever, and maybe where you're located or something like that, and we'll just keep it moving that way. But I'll just kick things off. So this topic is about, let me actually stop the music here. Okay. So the topic is ADOS. And so first, let me say what that means, because most people should know what it means, but I've seen people get the acronym or the title confused. And ADOS stands for American Descendant of slavery, or American descendants of slavery. And just that alone, that acronym, there are people who have a problem with that. And I've seen people talk about the acronym, and they can't get beyond that. So I'll, start off our discussion with with the acronym. And maybe, those of you who are in here now um can, give your opinion about the acronym or whatnot, and your view of what you feel ADOS is. All right. What do you think it is? And are you supportive of it or against it? So I'll just open the floor, and you can give some, preliminary remarks or whatever, and then we'll just go from there. So the floor is anybody. Anybody grab the mic.
Hey, this is Dave Young from Cleveland, Ohio, better known as Rujef M. Shemes Sekonecha. Um, I've been following ADOS. Did you explain ADOS, or do you want my understanding of ADOS?
Well, yeah, you can give your understanding. We could kind of go around, take turns, and everybody can give their understanding and build on it.
Okay, from my understanding, ADOS, the African descendants of slaves or slavery, is the reason they're titling in this, and the reason they're doing it the way they're doing it is because they're being specific when they start talking about reparations for these people, or our people here in the United States. And there's been a lot of misconception that they're against, or they're not in agreement with other Africans that were also transported to other countries that also were, their people are also descendants of slavery, but they're trying to be specific. We have a specific claim here in the United States that we're trying to get the reparations for our the atrocities that were done to us here in the United States, and that we empathize, and these are still our brothers and sisters in all of these other countries that they were affected by slavery. But this is specifically for the peoples here in the African descendants that are here in the United States. And I agree with it. Um, and I'll step back and let somebody else talk a little bit about it.
All right. Anybody else want to give your just your brief understanding of what ADOS is?
This is Damien, Damo, chiming in from Tulsa, Oklahoma, original Black Wall Street. ADOS, to me, is specific for descendants of those that were in slavery. Was brought over during the transatlantic slave trade. Went through all the torture and everything that we had to endure, and through all the centuries, here we are, and we're like, we're asking for restitution to be restored and made whole, and that's what I think it's about. And so, me being a descendant, I'm here to, speak up for my ancestors who, this is where we at in this point in time. And this, I feel, is a point that we need in our generation to push forward. I feel like each generation has a specific job to do, to their capacity, and they pushed it forward. And I feel like this here, now it has been identified. Are people scared of the tag? With me, I see the tag and I say, yes, now we can identify it. People running around, oh, you post-traumatic slave syndrome, we can identify it now. So I'm rolling with the identification, and I'm behind the movement, and I'm pro, for what I know so far, but I'm still learning. But that's what I can say so far.
Okay. All right. That's good. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Jeanette Vanessa Brooks. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I agree as well because our ancestors were the beginning of the generation of the ADOS. And in my opinion, we as Black African Americans, we should be out there protesting. You understand what I'm saying? But we're not united enough to get this bill passed, and we can get it passed. We do our part, like the young brother just said, that we are entitled to this, and like everyone else said, that we endured so much suffering, and we're still doing suffering because we can't begin to move up in the world as human beings. They still classify us as um, animals because that's what they used to call us back then.
Mm.
And I mean, I stayed in a part of the South and I seen different things and how different things were portrayed. And that's not our passion because we're supposed to be kind people, love one another, and we just are not glued together. And if we get our glue together and our thoughts together, and everyone believe in the same beliefs, then these donkeys can't do us like that. That's what
Mm.
I'm saying. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, because they done stepped all over us for centuries, and they still stepping over us. And then the next generation, they still gonna be enslavement, but it's a different type of enslavement. It's jail. So we as sisters and brothers, we need to come together, especially our generation and the generations after us. Now, if we don't, we'll never get paid. I mean, they owe us, and if it's written in law, they, by justice, by right, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to pay us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just like if you go to where they have revolution, they get bills passed because they step up to the plate, you know, and I mean, maybe they don't have the understanding, maybe they don't want, maybe they still want to be suppressed and live in poverty, you know, because they go keep us down because we as a whole, as a unity, or as black people, or whatever they want to call us, Negroes, or you know, whatever they want to call us. We have been so divided that we can't come together to get this bill passed, and we can get this bill passed
Okay.
if you do the right steps. And that's how I feel. That's my opinion.
Okay. Okay. All right. Um, so, just for anybody who's tuned in now, like I said before, I appreciate anybody who's tuned in, because I'm just now starting to use my YouTube channel. So anybody who's tuned in, listening to us live, when I have discussions, I like to have interactive discussions. So, so I'm passing out the link inside the chat for anyone to pop on the chat on the panel. We can have up to 100 people on the channel. I mean, excuse me, on the panel. And so we just ask everyone when you come in, you can mute your mic, and then nobody's talking over each other, but we can get 100 people here and have a discussion. And I know it's rather late. I'm on the East Coast, and it's 11 p.m. And this topic of ADOS, we can't talk about it enough in one discussion or one sitting. So I don't expect us to kind of cover everything about ADOS. So, we just want to have an open discussion and talk about what it is, or everybody's feeling on it so far. Everyone's been doing that. And then some of the issues that have come up, the back and forth and the fussing that's been going on about ADOS. All right. So, now what I would like to do Unless somebody does some anyone else have want to give an opinion on what ADOS is before I let me see who else here. Okay, and I believe it is locked on Damo's um, image there. All right, so what I'm gonna do is now this is how I always like to start the conversation about ADOS, and this is from the first time that I even spoke about it. Now with me, now everybody kind of went so far except me. All right, now when I first came across the hashtag ADOS and I saw it as a hashtag item on Twitter and Facebook and so on and so forth, what I did before I opened my mouth about it and before I made any Facebook posts or anything on social media or what have you, what I did, and it should be true for everybody, anybody who's a scholar or scientifically, minded or whatever, you want to do your research first. So what I did was I found out who the founders were, who kind of kickstarted or who's champion, behind it, who's the main people or person behind it. And then I did my investigation. And so what I did was I found out that we have Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, who are the two co-founders of this recent ADOS hashtag movement. And where they come from is, the sister Yvette Carnell, she has a social media group called Breaking Brown. And she's been doing that for quite a while. Antonio Moore, he has a group called Tone Talks. He has a show on Dash Radio, and he has a whole audience referred to as Tone Talk, the Tone Talk audience. You have Breaking Brown and Tone Talks. They combine, they come together, and then it kind of gives birth to this recent ADOS hashtag movement as far as social media. But in reality, it's an advocacy movement or phenomena that's going on. And so what I did was I took time out and watched as many of their videos as I could, or listened to them, while I'm doing things on the computer or what have you. I would listen. So I did that with Antonio Moore's page, Tone Talks, on his YouTube page. And I did the same thing with Yvette Carnell YouTube page. So I went back in history and started watching the videos to catch up, to see what it is that they were talking about and everything. And when you do that, you get the full context of what they're saying. And then you can cut back on the risk of just paying attention to the little sound bites that you may see people quote or show little clips of their videos or whatever the case is. But by you watching the whole videos yourself, now you see exactly the context, where they're coming from, and more importantly, the data. Because for the past 2 going on 3 years now, they've been educating and offering data about political issues in the black community, black politics, basically Black Politics 101, Black Politics 102. So they've been talking about politics. They've been talking about economics and things like that for quite a while, giving data, crunching numbers, showing statistics, and giving commentary in real time about political issues. And that's what you'll get from watching their videos, which leads us up into where we are today with the ADOS movement, advocacy movement, and the advocacy for reparative justice. All right. So that's something that I recommend everyone to do. And by me doing that, it allows me to see the current discussions that I bear witness to. I can tell who is saying things out of a lack of knowledge versus who's saying things based on knowledge. And it's real easy to detect once you do your own homework and you do your own due diligence. And it's clear that a lot of the back and forth fussing that I've seen is really, really unnecessary. And it's based on people not taking the time out to do their homework. Most of the arguments that I've seen are very shallow, they're very petty, and they're irrelevant to the actual issues that are being advocated. You know, so so I like to have these kind of discussions to bring up some of that and hopefully to offer some clarity to it. You know, I don't proclaim to speak on behalf of the ADOS movement. It's not a membership movement where you sign up and you sign an application and you become a card holding member of anything. I don't speak for Yvette Carnell. I don't speak for Antonio Moore. But I speak from what I take away from their education, what they've shared, and what they've advocated, and others. It's not just them, but they're the main two or the face of the movement. That's the two names that you'll hear the most. All right, so but that's where I'm at, and this is what I encourage everyone to do. Take time out to do your own due diligence. Go watch their videos so you can plug in the context of why they say what they say and the history behind what they're saying. All right, and to see the data supporting the things that are said. All right, and it's advocated. And once you do that, then you become an advocate. You share it. You educate people. You do what you can. You get in where you fit in, as they say. If it's something you agree with. All right, and I don't see how anybody will not agree with it. All right, and even this, I've seen people who disagree with the ADOS movement, but when I ask them, do they agree with reparations or reparative justice being given to the descendants of slavery victims, everybody agrees with that. I haven't met one person that disagrees with that. But out of those people who agree with that, there's people who disagree with the ADOS advocacy movement. So that's a problem. How you reconcile that? How on one hand you could be all for reparations for ADOS people, but then be against the ADOS advocacy movement. And so there has to be a reason. And when you tease out the reasons are very, very shallow and petty and really unnecessary. And so that's been my experience. And, so I'll just kind of open with that. And like I said, anyone who's watching, I am giving out the link if you want to come in to this panel and be part of the discussion and, chime in and, give your words of wisdom or whatever the case is, then by all means. So I'm gonna keep posting link from time to time for those who may be just jumping on or in the chat or in the video or watching the video. All right. So I'll open with that. But what I want to do, I'll open the floor again. But what I want to do, I want to share the website, the ADOS101.com website, which is something that everyone should read before they open their mouth about ADOS, at the very least, because the website is there for a reason, and the website is the official website, and it kind of synchronizes everybody into understanding what is being advocated. All right, and so that's a starting point for everyone, is to go to the website, and then obviously go to Antonio Moore's YouTube and Yvette Carnell's YouTube. Those are the three safe sites to direct people to for information. But so in this discussion, I wanted to kind of share the website, and we could kind of talk about some of the bullet points that are in the Black agenda that's on the website. But right now, I'll just yield the mic to if anybody want to make a comment from there. And if not, I'm gonna keep on talking now. So okay, I'll do this. Let me. I'll do that. I'll just do that. I will share the site. All right. So, and I'm gonna try my best to keep my eye out on the chat. All right. So that and peace to everyone in the chat. Again, like I said, I'm just now starting to use my YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe. because I will have, discussions on various topics. And like I said, I like interactive discussions. I like slowed down, you know, progressive, thought provoking discussions. I don't like, to do the other kind of stuff. All right. So various different topics I'll bring up. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right. So starting off here with the website. So this is the Black Agenda. All right. And the first sentence here kind of summarizes what ADOS movement is advocating. All right. So it says, as a specific group with a specific justice claim, the ADOS movement demands a specific agenda with policy prescriptions that address the losses stemming from the institution of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, convict leasing, mass incarceration, and immigration. All right. And so that right there kind of starts to put everybody into the more narrow framework of what this advocacy is all about. All right. It's demanding policy prescriptions, which means that this is something that is going towards the branch of government, the legislative branch of government. We have three branches of government. We have the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. All right. When you want to affect or change or create laws, that is the legislative branch of government that's responsible for that. All right. That's Congress. That's the Senate and the House. All right. And, by all means, I encourage everyone to take a refresher on how bills are passed into law. You can probably Google it or go on YouTube and search for it and get a refresher on that process, so you can see what's all involved. It's something that we learned in I guess grade school and civics class, but we may need a refresher about that. All right, but this is what this advocacy is targeting. It's targeting the legislative branch of government. All right, and we know that politicians, congressmen, they move based on pressure and not applause. All right, so they're supposed to represent the people and not the other way around. So it's an issue of the advocacy as a bulk unit or a block of people that have the same interest. That block of people can shift our weight or move our weight around and actually apply the pressure to these politicians to solve our issues or to address the issues that we're advocating. All right. And that's part of the whole legislative process, the political process. All right. So, all right. So before I go through, any more of the bullets, though, I do want to start, like I said, about the acronym. So we have ADOS, and I've seen several people, bring that up as an excuse not to support the movement. All right. And so what are your thoughts on that, on the acronym, on ADOS, and what those letters stand for? And like I said, you can unmute yourself, and the mic is open, so you can unmute yourself and talk. So again, I'm asking, what are your thoughts on the acronym? Like, and what have you seen people have a problem with the acronym ADOS?
I think people got a problem with the slavery part. It's like they don't still want to be tied to it, or like it's not part of our history, kind of, or like, I guess having the word in it in itself is like we're asking instead of demanding. I've seen people have a problem with the slavery word. I also seen people have a problem with the American word, and they say, why didn't you put African descendants of slavery? I've seen people have a problem with that word too. That's what I've seen.
Okay. Well, okay. So let's go point for point then. I mean, so you said you've seen people have a problem with the slavery part, so that's the S. So slavery. So what exactly? Like, give an example of what you seen somebody say about that.
Basically, they were saying, why do we even have to have the word slavery in there? You know, why can't we just be the African descendants? Uh, fighting for, like almost like the word was understood. Like, why y'all, you making it sound, bad by putting the word slavery. That's just what I've seen when people arguing over the word slavery. Like, why y'all having the word slavery in there? Well, slavery, we just making sure that that's because that's part of the history, that's part of the title also. I've seen people argue that point, but that's just what I've seen. Really nothing really specific or a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 1 second though. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to come in here. I see someone says, "Is there a call-in number?" And let me see. There should be a call-in number because you can actually use the app. I'm gonna repost. I'm gonna keep posting the link from time to time. If you click on the link, you have an option to use your computer to come in, or you can come in by your phone. All right. So if you're looking at the link, come in. You don't have to have a camera or your camera on or anything like that. Just make sure that you mute yourself when you come in so that you won't be disruptive. All right. That's the only thing. So I'm gonna keep posting the link from time to time. You can click on that link if you're on your phone and you click on it. Then it's going to take you to a way where you can dial in or something like that. But if you can't, let me know. Just type in the chat. Let me know, and I'll make sure I try to help you out.
You want the number?
Yeah, if you could post it in the chat. I don't know if you're watching on the YouTube side.
I wasn't, but I can.
I posted it.
Okay. Yeah, if you could post it again, damn, I appreciate that. So, but let me okay, so let's kind of address that though. What you just said about the slavery part. So, but I want you to notice that problem is not really. It's like a preference problem. It's like, okay, slavery. Nobody likes to. I mean, slavery is not something that anyone brags about. It's not something to be proud of or to brag about as if that was all a good thing at all. So we understand that. So the question is, why do we feel the need or it necessary to use the word slavery? And so this is what people have to understand. See, instead of going the emotional or how it makes me feel route, people should really start to look at how this argument is being framed. And so this is a legal argument, legislative argument. And so when you are demanding justice for something, you have two kind of frameworks to look at it. You have a social justice lens or framework, and then you have a restorative justice framework. And they're similar, but they're significantly enough different that people should note those differences. And so restorative justice is a legal thing. And so you have to, like with any justice, you have to identify the victim, you have to identify the perpetrator, and then you have to identify the damage or what was done. Those, three among, maybe some more things, but those three things have to be identified. And so the S for slavery is speaking about chattel slavery, because that is part of the damage. That is the event or circumstances that brings about the damage that, is being brought up. So we have to mention that. Okay, so ADOS is so let's break down ADOS a little further. The A stands for American. When we say it's American descendants of slavery. Appreciate anyone coming in, but if you could mute your mic.
Okay, I got you.
All right, yeah, and you can unmute it when you're ready to talk. So now the A stands for American. So when we say American, but what do we mean by American? Because what I've seen people say, well, American, that could be Canada, the United States, that could be Central America, South America. And no, it can't. Now, America by itself, yes. The Americas by itself, yes. But ADOS is defined, even though the acronym it's further defined. So it doesn't matter what term we use. It's all about how it's defined. And the A in ADOS is defined as United States citizens, okay, which is AKA Americans. All right, we are American nationals and we're citizens of this particular country. So the A in America, to be more specific, is representative of United States citizens. All right. And then descendants, everyone should understand that we're talking about lineal descendants. Lineal descendants, not collateral descendants, lineal descendants. So we're lineal descendants of, and when it says slavery, it's talking about the institution of slavery. And so what I've been recently telling people is in order to kind of get over that stigma, just put victim after it. So if you gotta say it to yourself, say, American descendants of slavery victims, because that's what we are. So ADOS as a people is to set a boundary for identification purposes. Who are you talking about? So we are descendants of the victims of the institution of slavery. But it's not just slavery now. It's also, and this is why I have it on the screen, it's also talking about colonial and United States of America slavery. Okay, so we can't leave out colonial because, prior to the United States becoming the United States, they were colonies. So we have to say, be a little bit more detailed and specific, colonial and United States of America slavery, chattel slavery. Then also we have black codes and United States of America Jim Crow. We have that as well. Then we have redlining. We have convict leasing, mass incarceration, and immigration. All of these various different things add up. So whenever you start to identify something, by default you have an inclusion and exclusion, statements. You have to know what to include in the category and how to exclude things out of the category. And so those two things happen simultaneous. So what makes a person an ADOS? I'm asking, I'm sorry. I'm putting on the floor. What makes a person an ADOS?
A person that's ADOS is a person, just as the acronym says, these are people considered Americans that are descendants of slavery. So that means the people that were brought over through the transatlantic trade slave over to America, and then we are the descendants of those slaves that were brought over to the U.S.
Okay, now even how you just said that, there would be people who would nitpick at how you said that, because I've heard people say, and it's true, that slaves were not brought over here. Human beings, were brought here, kidnapped, and then enslaved. So some people get real particular about that. And
I should have said Africans.
yeah. Well, even we're gonna talk about that a little later. African, what constitutes an African, but so ADOS. So what qualifies a person as ADOS? So you said as a descendant of those who were kidnapped and brought here and forced into servitude and slavery. Okay, but now how would you go about, so what would be some of the things that you can use to identify yourself as an ADOS?
People of color.
I'm sorry, say it again.
People of color.
And you get kind of touchy when you say people of color, because Mexicans are people of color.
Yeah, that's
you say people that was bought from over in Africa. I mean, you can be people of color, I understand that. But when you put slavery behind it, what person that was brought over here that had color in their skin came from Africa? You understand what I'm saying? So, I mean, you can't be that.
Yeah, if I can say something, guys, that
Yeah, I mean, slavery is telling you what color you are. I mean, you wasn't a Spaniard when you came over here. You wasn't an Indian, uh, and from India when you came over here. You didn't come from Pakistan, because they fighting with them over there, or they didn't go into their territory because they were bonded together. You didn't step on their feet.
Okay, so let's.
We got stepped over in Africa, and that's our color. That made us people of color.
Okay, so all right. So I think somebody else was gonna say something. Um,
Can you?
yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh no, y'all can go ahead. I just want to know was I muted or not? Go ahead.
Oh no, no. We can hear you. Did you had a comment or anything?
I'm just not getting. I had to download the app, so I'm kind of missing some of the conversation. So I'm just listening, trying to
Oh, catch
get a
up.
feel for the conversation again. This is Jermaine Woods. I was just in your chat room, by the way.
Okay, all right. Welcome. So all right. So you could hang tight and feel free to jump in.
Oh,
Feel free to jump in. So and I do see some other people on. So again, if you have a comment and whatnot, just go ahead and politely kind of because it's kind of I can't like call on a person or whatever. Plus some of these names I don't even see. But let me say something to what you just said, Sister Vanessa, that we have to be careful about person of color though, and I think that's what David had alluded to. And Jermaine, I'm gonna have
guys,
to
I'm
mute.
I'm kind of missing some of the conversation. So I'm just
Okay, I'm hearing somebody probably need to mute themselves.
okay. I got it. Okay, guys.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, Sister Vanessa, we have to be careful when we say people of color. And see, this is why we got to be very, very specific because people of color can be anybody. And so ADOS as a full acronym and with its definition needs to be understood full-fledged all the way around, And so what qualifies someone to be an ADOS? Now mind you, in a reparative justice claim, you have to identify the claim holders. Okay, when you're talking about a claim, you have to have claim holders, and the claim holders will be the modern day living United States citizens who are descendants of slavery victims. Okay, so we say American descendants of slavery, but we're talking about the institution of slavery and the victims of institutional slavery. So we have to identify the victims now. And so we have to have a way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You can go back through the census. The census gonna tell you. I mean, if you go back through the census, it's gonna tell everything because they kept a record of it.
Right. And see, this is why it's very important for us to understand the time frame that we're dealing with. Because when we speak of chattel slavery, and if we were only speaking about chattel slavery, then it's going to be very, very, very difficult to identify your lineal descent because records were not kept very well for chattel slavery in terms of people trying to trace it out. So people have to understand that this reparative justice claim is dealing with a time range from approximately 1619 from chattel slavery all the way up to 1952. Okay, so when you say that you're a descendant of a victim of the institution of slavery, etc., or ... then you have to show that you are a descendant of a victim. And you have to identify the victim. So a victim is a person who was born before 1952 and who was also listed as either being black, colored, Negro, Afro American, African American, Black American, and et cetera, et cetera. All right. So we have to understand that. And then you as a claim holder also at birth has to also have been identified as Black, Negro, colored, Afro American, African American, Black American, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So those are the inclusion statements as far as to qualify you as being an actual ADOS, a descendant.
I kind of can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of imagine that there would be a system around, our the professionals that can get together a system as though we all got birth certificates, and if anybody can go back with the birth certificate, you're in the system, as having grandparents, and like my great grandparents, they were freed slaves, and basically, then you be identified with the driving license or whatever kind of ID you have. They understand pretty much how to set that system up in terms of reparations because they've done it for other groups. But with us having this conversation, it's pretty humble of us as a group to take some type of initiative and to take pride in each other. And I think this is a beautiful beginning for us to become community of what we've been denied. But I do believe that we can be found in this country. It's been a long time ago, but it hasn't been that long time ago when slaves died. The last slave died was 1971. And I think his name was Fountain Hughes.
Okay.
So I'm pretty. That's why I can say that I'm kind of reassured by thinking of it from that standpoint. But I'll let you finish what you were saying. You can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, don't be sorry. So yeah, but that's a good point. So this is why we have to have an understanding of the time range, because 1952 is not that far away. It's not that long ago. Most of us have parents that were born before 1952. And so when you get to your grandparent level, then you're definitely within that range. Okay? So it's not that far. So we have to be clear about what we're talking about in terms of the damage. So we're not talking about just chattel slavery. And I think that's a point that Damo that you raised, that people have a problem with that S on there, slavery. They're looking at it as chattel slavery and looking at it as a negative thing, but they're not understanding that that's the damage. That's the part of the damage. That's the start of the damage. And then after chattel slavery, we have Jim Crow. We have Black Codes, Jim Crow. We have, and then all the other things more recently that has led up all up to 1952. So this justice claim is inclusive of all of that. And this is what you hear people refer to.
I don't think a lot of people understand when they get to talking with their emotions. I think they're suffering from a syndrome that had happened to them within community subconsciously, and they're not seeing that the clear picture it is for some of us with an intellectual presence. We see, that it's not just chattel slavery. That's just where the harm began, and then we went through institutionalized racism, and now the blood sacrifice off the wealth that was made. It engaged a huge wealth gap, and now we're living in terms of economic slavery. Even those who are educated, and as we reflect into community in terms of business and political adjustments, like our constitutional rights we have never obtained our property and our justice claims. We're always supposed to get property and stuff like that to be able to keep up with the integrity of our environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I think that people skipping that, for some odd reason. I don't know why, because a lot of us feel it today, and inside the, community, inside of businesses, different things of that nature, for what slavery did. And then, and we're supposed to be compensated for that on an equal playing field, like other groups.
We're right. But
hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
This is Brother Nas. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, how you doing, bros?
All right.
I just want to chime in real fast. You made a good point.
the institution of slavery, I just want to drop a book real fast. It's a book called The Half That's Never Been Told. It clearly breaks down how the economic engine was started for this country to gain the wealth to even be a superpower in this world. It goes into the cotton industry. It goes into the different bond instruments that were created in New York City that were traded globally with different parts of Europe. That really jump started the whole industrial revolution. This slavery that started in America. So I think that's another thing people forget. They don't really like understand like the amount of money that was generated off of the backs of slavery, and then after slavery you had Jim Crow and all that stuff. But the initial that money's still in the system, and it wasn't just the government; it was also companies also that benefited off that. But that money's still in the system, so that's what gives ADOS a claim to emphasize slavery as an institution, American descendant of slavery, because that was a money making institution. And I just want to drop that.
No, that's good because and that emphasizes the point of institution, and we also have to remember another key element, that it was backed by the government, and that's a critical issue, that it was permitted by the government, sanctioned by the government. All right, so we are talking about the institution of slavery, chattel slavery, and then everything that came after that up until 1952. All right, and people have to understand that.
I got a quick question. Just something I was tossing around trying to understand. The U.S. government didn't officially form until 1776. The U.S. government, as we know it,
independence, and then 1789 was the
1789, I think. So how will we now? I'm trying to get a question to this answer. How, if the government wasn't technically formed before then, who's claim who will be party on the claim?
The British.
Well, no. That's why we that's why we have to be specific about the S part of it, because we're talking about colonial and United States of America slavery.
Gotcha.
So we're talking about colonial and United States of America slavery. We're talking about black codes and United States of America Jim Crow. Okay, so we got to be real clear and specific. And see, people are expecting that all to be within the acronym. The nature of an acronym is to be brief as possible, not to be a whole long sentence. So acronyms are further defined, and I think that's what a lot of people are ignoring. So people have a problem with the acronym, not even trying to look beyond the four letters and to really dig in to see how it's defined. So I'm telling everybody, just relax a little bit. The ADOS is just a shortened way for us to start setting this boundary, American descendants of slavery. And that's done because really that's done out of necessity to separate the flat black, because in this country we have this concept of black. Everybody's black who looks a certain way, but not everybody who looks that way fits the same circumstances and are a result of the same atrocities that took place in this country. So it became necessary to separate first and second generation immigrants who would be called black in this country versus those who actually descend from victims of the institution of slavery in this country. So it's necessary for this justice claim to do that. And so some people have a problem with that. They're like, well, why we're creating division. Why do you have to divide blackness, the black and everything? It's if anybody understands law and how law works, it's very, very specific. You got to be very, very specific. And the fact that first and second generation immigrants, be they black or not, they're not entitled to the same justice claim that's being made. So that's just reality. You know what I'm saying? So people gotta really understand these things.
I I totally agree. I kind of been following with the ADOS movement for the last 2 years. There's a little background, and I was listening with Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell, and then for me, instantly listening to both of them, it made me want to step up my political game because I've been apolitical for years, and I just didn't understand the process and just didn't care about it. But for me to listen to them, that helped me step up my political game and to study and try to get a better grasp of local politics and national politics, and then actually study and try to be more informed. And I'm glad you're doing this call too, because I was on one of those calls with Garfield. I stopped going over there because it just got too muddled, and the conversation needs to be slowed down. There's a lot of new people coming in who don't study, and they just want to nitpick and find ways to tear it down. But uh, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, brother. I'll be here with you. But I'm with you. I think people need to study and take their time and really. Well, one thing I did too, I also went to my lineage. I started researching my lineage on both sides, mom and dad, and I can go back to like the early 1800s, 1812 with my dad's side. But that was like one of the first things I did, just to even sort of solidify myself as being a descendant of slave, instead of just going around saying it. It's like, no, I actually have records of a lineage of a descent. So I think that's one thing that people should do is like study your lineage first. And I think you made a point also about saying how it's two sides of this. It's a lineal side with the acronym. There's a political side that we're trying to form, a political block or a political lobby.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people confuse the two, because anybody can be ADOS off of just being a descendant of slave, but the political lobby is what I'm more so trying to help form and actually, like you said earlier, it's a continuation of the civil rights movement, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna keep having these conversations. Like whenever I see the bubbling up of misunderstanding, then I'm gonna have these discussions, and hopefully I can help. And I'm not I don't claim to be an expert, and like I said, I don't speak on behalf. I'm not a spokesperson for Yvette or Antonio or any of that. But I hope to offer some kind of clarity on some issues based on my understanding, and then I encourage people. I don't want people to just take me and stop at me. I want them. I'm trying to direct them to the information, try to direct them to what I read, and so on. But I see somebody in the chat, Ebony Knowledge is saying that it's not ADOS is not the best acronym, and they're asking which slaves. And then next comment is that acronym is not specific. It is broad and leaves it open to. Okay, then they further. Yes, how it is defined matters, but it is not the best acronym. Move on from that point. No, listen. The acronym is sufficient. It's very, very sufficient. Because one, the reality is this. We are United States citizens, period. We are nationals of this country, the United States of America, period. We use that in a summary word, American. When you go abroad, you're called American. All right. When you say American, people are not going to think Mexico. All right. This is something. This should be a common consensus by this point. All right. So the acronym is sufficient, but even if there's any ambiguity in there, it is defined. Even the slaves, it's talking about colonial and United States of America chattel slavery. From there, you have black codes. You also have Jim Crow, sharecropping, convict leasing, redlining, which gave birth to what we call the hoods or the ghettos and things like that. All of these things are defined if people were to take the time out and to look at it. All of this is not going to be within the acronym. If you or anybody enters into a contract, whether you buy a house or lease a car, buy a car, whatever the case is, you look at any contract the contract usually will have a section for definitions, and it's there for a reason. It strips any of this ambiguous language or words that could be used in multiple ways. It eliminates that by giving specific definitions in a definition section of contracts. So therefore, within the context of the contract, you know how this word is being used and what is meant. So within this reparative justice claim that we're calling reparations, all these things are specifically defined. It's just that people don't get that far because they hear these polarizing terms. Slavery. Oh man, why we gotta always talk about slavery? I've seen enough movies about slavery. We got 12. What was it? 12. What was it? 12 something. That movie. We got Roots. We got all these different movies. Oh, I'm just tired of it. Why we gotta identify with slaves? We were great before slavery and this and that. So people got a problem with that. These are emotional things. It has nothing to do with law. Law doesn't care about how we feel at all. These are realities that we have to understand. We have to understand how this stuff works. So the acronym is sufficient. We are American, even though we don't like it. Now this is the thing about American. Now this is what's really, really, really problematic. Okay, like you said, who was that? Brother Naj. Okay, you said you were apolitical for a very long time, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now that is the general. Now, not everybody, but that is the majority of our folks are apolitical. Like we don't participate in politics like that. To the point where we brag about it. Like, it's almost like a pump our fists in the air. Like, oh, no, I'm not participating in politics before and this and that. But think about it. So here we are. We live in a country. We are citizens of this country. We're nationals of this country. Not only are we citizens and nationals, but we have been here generationally here. Like, yeah, like I'll use me, for example. Both of my parents were born in the United States. My 4 sets of grandparents were also born in the United States. Their parents born in the United States. So I have children born in the United States. So I am multi-generationally just soleil of this soil. All right. So I'm American citizen. I'm a national of America. So once we understand that our lives are directly affected on the macro level through government and politics, then it's absolutely insane and crazy for me not to participate in that. If I'm going to be here, if I'm going to live here, why wouldn't I participate on the macro level of government and politics that's going to affect me and my life and my family's life and then us at large? That's
I
That's
totally.
exactly where I am. Guys, I agree with that. That goes back to the acronym. And I think this will pull us all out of the corner. The study of the acronym and having a lawyer, attorney aboard to actually know, exactly, and a professor to actually know exactly, how to label that. And I think that's what got us even to come out of the whole acronym. I mean, reparations has been talked about for a long time, but ADOS is something even more definite. And I'm sorry to cut in, but I'm excited about that. That's what excites me. Just that it is fulfilling, very substantial. But I'll let you finish. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. I was just reiterating that the point of our participation in politics is it's just crazy for us not to, but let's look at the side effects of that attitude, and a lot of us have that attitude. So that's not something that is not uncommon. It is very common for us to have an attitude to be apolitical. We don't participate.
Sonny Joe, I just want to jump in.
And I understand the brother saying he was political, but I think a lot of the reasons why a lot of us are apolitical because we think the whole thing is rigged anyway.
But
And for years, I'm thinking the same way. It's all rigged. It don't matter what you do.
but let
You
me
put your votes in, uh, they steal that. So I think that's why a lot of people were on that road of being apolitical.
yeah, and let me I'll just chime in real quick. What got me out of being apolitical is by me participating in my local government, my local politics. See, now I'm not. Now I'm doing my local politics. I get a good example. We just had an alderman. I'm in St. Louis, so we had an alderman. I'm in 18th ward, so we had an election that came up, and we had town halls. We was able to vet all the candidates, and we voted on them. And this particular alderman has access to resources in my community, certain funds that he can access to bring projects. I give you one example. We needed to get roadblocks on my streets because we had a child that died in a hit and run. People speed up and down the street, so we petitioned in the community to get these speed barriers to put up, and we all signed petitions, and we actually got them. We had money in the budget. We actually got them. We needed more street lights. We actually got them. So this is the question I ask a lot of people who are shooting ADOS down. It's like, how are you engaging in your local politics? And most people don't. They don't even do it. They don't even engage in the local politics. They want to shoot ADOS down. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good example, and that's should be that can't be emphasized enough. Local politics is like very tangible, very fast turnaround, because if you deal with your local politics, you actually see the results in a much faster way than you're on your state level or federal level. Within your even if you live in a subdivision, a lot of subdivisions of neighborhoods have have some kind of committee that deals with things as well. So politics is multi-level depending on your proximity. So you got local, state, and then federal politics, and so people can start there locally and then start to see the larger picture. That's why I said macro. So when I say macro, is that the United States, because we have to understand that when we say USA, we kind of take it for granted that we're dealing with 50 states that are independent and have most of their sovereignty still intact. See, these are sovereign states that relinquish part of their sovereignty in exchange to join a union called the United States of America in exchange for protection from protection by the union itself, the federal level. All right, the federation. So, but these states are independent, and the governor of each state correlates to the president of the United States. So the governor is the highest, official, and so on and so forth. And once people understand that structure, then we'll understand that us as citizens, the reason why each individual citizen can never be a sovereign themselves, and this is to speak to that whole sovereign citizen movement and stuff like this. How that will never work is because as a citizen of the United States, you are giving up your sovereignty in exchange for something. And that exchange is protection, because you're exchanging your sovereignty to become a member of, the government or this country in exchange for its protection and access to government and the right to have rights. And those rights are supposed to be protected by the government, which you have access to. But if you never participate in government, then you're never going to have your interests or collective as a group or interest block of people, our interests, our voice is never going to be heard. And so the whole idea of being apolitical is suicidal and very detrimental. And that's the attitude that a lot of us have. And so this ADOS advocacy movement is also a paradigm shifter. And this is why we seeing a lot of people fight against it. Because it's shifting. It's forcing people to shift their views. Because we built this country. Our ancestors built this country. And so we have to shift from being an exploitive class, a failure and exploitation class of people, to become the owner and producer class of people. And the only way we can do that is if we stop having one foot in and one foot out and never going anywhere, as opposed to having both feet here and face up and participate. And that's the attitude that ADOS, the movement, has. And that's what people don't like, because people like that feel good position of having one foot out the door, one foot in the door, and then always talking about this fantasy existence that never comes to fruition. Because you think about it, like if you're in a relationship, and I mean, and probably everybody here probably knows somebody that fits this description. You got people who are in a relationship, they're not happy with the relationship, but they're not leaving at the same time. So they got one foot out of the relationship, but they're not leaving it, and they're putting up with it, but they're never going to leave. And so that's how we are as a collective of people. We don't like the way the government has treated us, but we're still here. We're in an abusive relationship. We're acting like we're going to leave, but we never leave. So we've been here for multi-generations.
Well, and then there's another side of that also, where the ones who do leave run to Africa and they jump over their family members from Mississippi down to Alabama, Louisiana, who live in poverty, and they're globetrot to Africa to imaginarily go save somewhere else. Like, what kind of psychological? How can you like just jump over your whole family lineage? Probably from the South somewhere. These people are living in third world conditions, but you would jump over that when you the ones who do leave, and you would jump over that and you would run to Africa, and I don't know, I don't get it. And you would put yourself on the cross and be crucified for them, but you wouldn't do that for your people here. Your lineage is actually at. So
yeah, weird. Right. And
African panism right there. That's what you're talking about, African panism. But I come to learn at the grassroots, Ms. Harper speaking, that I find out it's disparaging, but I had to remember that it's okay. You know, that a lot of us, the black people, you know, American descendants of slavery, a lot of us don't even realize what the government has done to us. And, you know, it's almost like in a mere existence and not even realize how important you are and how very important you are, not only to yourself, but to this nation, and not even realize it. I mean, it's just like, it's at that place, but, you know, I'm sure to come away from that, you know, in the grassroots. I really am sure of that. I can tell.
I want to address somebody's question. There's a good question in the chat. Karen Bell asked the question. So she says, so is ADOS going to get a box to check off for the census? And so that's a good question. I'm about to mute you on the phone or somebody. I'm hearing background.
Oh, go ahead. That's probably me. Go ahead. I wanted to comment on the last part, but y'all have moved on. Go ahead.
Okay, let me just answer this question real quick. So she asked the question. She says, so is ADOS going to get a box to check off on the census? And that's a good point to ask about. And the answer is that the 2020 census has changed. Okay, you can go to the census website and actually see what it's going to be. The form has changed. And what they've done is they separated race and ethnicity. So now if you check your race as black, then you have a second box to fill in to specify the type of black you are. So you can actually put with your heritage or whatever. You could put Jamaican, you could put Haitian, or whatever the case is. All right. Now, in terms of the acronym ADOS, that's part of the legislation. That's part of the demand. That's part of what is being proposed. That's part of, you know, the agenda that is trying to come across targeting the legislative branch. Because you got to understand that we have to become a protected class, and we have to be identifiable. All right, and it can't be blurred or ambiguous. So unlike this category called minorities, which includes everybody but white men, it includes white women, it includes immigrants, and the whole nine. Instead of a broad class or category like that, we're being very, very specific. And so that's part of legislation. But in terms of the 2020 census, yes, you will be able to check your race and your ethnicity separately. All right, and that's you could take a peep at that. And just real quick. By the way, if you look at the census, it's crazy because when you look at the census, they define what they mean by these races. And believe it or not, some people know this, but a lot of people don't. If you're from North Africa, if you're from Algeria, Morocco, I think Libya, and even Egypt, and all those northern African countries above the Sahara, you are considered white. Just because if you come from if you are an ex-national or a citizen of those northern African countries and you come to the United States and you get your citizenship or whatever, you will be called a white. You can self-identify yourself as white, and that's according to the definition right there in the census. So it's not about skin color, and that's a. But go ahead. I want to talk about this colorism and the skin color thing and how that's part of the problem. But go ahead. I don't want to be too long. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say quick that it was a petition online. Someone put, I think, to get ADOS added to the census. It was some type of petition going around for I think the Congress, some type of Congress something website where you can, if you get a certain amount of signatures, it can be added. I forgot who had it. I forgot but he was a person who was pushing for ADOS to put on the census, specifically ADOS. And then one more point you made was even the Europeans have to self-identify and delineate because they realize they made a mistake with this. And they realize like things are getting too muddled for Europeans, white people, and for us. Like things are getting real muddled. So even they, like you said, how someone from North Africa considered white, that makes absolutely no sense. They had to change the census in 2020. It had to change, and it's for everybody to like self-identify, to drill down further, because there's resources tied to the census. There's all type of data that comes off of that, and money that goes behind that data. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to pull it up right now, so I can share it on the screen. But you all can, and anybody can Google. Just Google 2020 census form, and you will see that citizenship is asked. Is one of the proposals. Is this person a citizen of the United States? Now that one is touchy. You got people who are disagreeing with that question because they're saying it's discouraging people who are not U.S. citizens because they want to be able to count citizens and non-citizens every 10 years as well. So that's one of the ones that people are fighting about. And this one is, what is this person's race? And then you put a check: white, black, American Indian or Alaska Native. Then you have Chinese, Filipino, Asian, Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese, Native Hawaiian, Samoan, Chamorro, and other Pacific Islander. But they all have these boxes where you can actually fill in. You have to print your ethnicity. So if you're white, you have to say your heritage, whether you're German, Irish, English, Italian, Lebanese, Egyptian, Moroccan. They start naming African countries, North African countries, Sub-Saharan countries. That's included in the black category, and the Caribbean. So it says black, and then it says print. If you're Jamaican, Haitian, Nigerian, Ethiopian, Somalian, Kenyan, and all of that. So it's a little different. It's going to be different in 2020. All right, next year's census. So I just want everybody to understand that. But what I wanted to say about this color thing is this right here, that we have to understand that when we talk about race, we're talking about a social construct. But the problem with the social construct is that we confuse it with it being descriptive. Like that's the game. Whereas white, we think, first of all, we got to understand that nobody is literally black. and nobody is literally the color white. These are classes or a hierarchy of a social constructs that forms a caste system. Whereas black, it could have been called anything. Black and white, the white category or caste wasn't created until 1681. So prior to 1681, there was no white people. So if people understand what I mean by that, I don't mean that it wasn't people that we now call white in existence. What I'm saying is that nobody was called white. There was no white people prior to 1681. So these classes or these caste ranks, hierarchical ranks, were created, and so we happen to be dumped into the bottom container. Black as a level became the exploitation level, the failure level. All right, and white became the successful level, the producers, the controllers, and so people are in that category have to maintain that category. And so this is why systems are in place. That's why slavery is an institution, and we're fighting against systems. We're not fighting against individuals. We're fighting against an entire systemic, problems and phenomena and things like that. And so this is what people have to realize. And so it's a trick for us to say, okay, white, because the census is going to wake people up. Because a very dark-skinned Egyptian can self-identify, rightfully so, as white. And that's going to confuse people, because in our minds, when we say black, we got this image in our mind of what a black person looks like. We don't look at it as a class or a rank among a social constructed hierarchy. We don't look at it that way. That's not how we live it. We don't live it that way. And so this is what ADOS is doing. ADOS movement is waking people up. It's waking people up to politics. It's waking people up to the reality so that we can get out of this fantasy world of feel good, to avoid, the realities that we've had throughout the generations that we're still suffering from. But anyway, I just wanted to say that because we gotta start understanding that this colorism, this crayon color stuff, is really a problem if you don't understand it. And in senses, you're going to be able to self-identify on here. Nobody's going to take your blood and say, okay, you're right, you're wrong. No, these census forms are going to be filled out. People will be able to self-identify, but they're given definitions and instructions on how to fill it out and what to check based on this criteria, that criteria.
I just wanted to add one thing too, though. I can't speak for the foreign blacks, but as far as the ADOS blacks, this is to me is the most unifying movement I've seen since I've been looking online, because I see Hebrew Israelites, Muslims, Christians, atheists, Pan-Africanists all agreeing on ADOS. I'm not saying everybody from those castes, but I'm saying I done seen a representative from each one of those groups representing ADOS. So I think that's a positive. Because before that, all we was doing was debating and arguing with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now, because before this started, I used to debate with Aboriginals and stuff like that, and now I see an Aboriginal putting ADOS, I don't even say anything to them. I just keep it moving.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's another benefit that comes out of this advocacy movement is that it does not care about your beliefs. It doesn't care about your gender. It doesn't care about your beliefs. None of that stuff matters.
Right. And color too. Because don't care about you dark skin or light skin, because we all can unite under ADOS, and I'm dark skin.
Right. And that's something that people have a problem with. Sister Yvette, she's light skinned or whatever. She had to do a DNA test and share it with the world to prove
right.
to prove the
and
people.
Then I want to say too, this is so. I do see some ADOS people saying that, but a lot of this is being fueled by non-ADOS people, because I had a debate in one of those colorist videos about Beyonce being black. They was really debating me about Beyonce not black. And then it dawned on me that they wasn't American when they said stuff like, "Well, you Americans, y'all can't drop that one drop rule," and they say stuff like that. So I feel like some of this stuff is really being fueled by non-ADOS.
Well, listen, I can tell you this, that there are people who are perpetrating and faking to be ADOS just to start confusion. There are Twitter users that are using the acronym within their username, and they're starting controversy. They're acting like they are ADOS, but then they're saying some controversial things and then causing people to argue back and forth. And for instance, Antonio and Yvette had to address one tweet by this user that, I guess it grew legs enough for them to have to address it, to where they actually created. You got people who created a website. It's called I am ADOS or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, they created a whole website and they're asking people to sign up on a registry. Like they're trying to get people,
like it's the Indian tribe. Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, and that has nothing to do with the ADOS movement at all. So they had to come out and make sure they clarified that for people. So with every movement, there's gonna be people who are gonna try to sabotage and everything. So we gotta, and that's why it's very important for people not to listen to everybody. They go to the official outlets. The official outlet is Antonio Moore's YouTube channel, which is Tone Talks, Yvette Carnell and Breaking Brown, her YouTube channel, and then the official website.
Right.
And they have a Facebook. They have a Facebook group too. It's called same thing, ADOS, and it has their picture on the top, and everybody in there is keeping up, and it's real nice in there. So those are
because see, what I see a lot of people do, they go to the more radical people that's talking to ADOS message, and they try to connect that to Yvette, and you know what I'm saying. They find somebody on YouTube, a radical one, that made a video, and then they want to connect that to Yvette and Tone Talk.
Exactly.
And I see that a lot too.
And so that's why we just got to be careful. So but that's part of the territory. That's.
And I just wanted to go back to that last thing I said, and another buzzword that I noticed too. They say things like multi-generational mixed, or you a multi-generational mulatto. They say stuff like that. And if you think about it, I've never heard an African American say stuff like that. Like that's not stuff that we say, and that's just like certain buzzwords to look out for when you're not talking to ADOS.
Right. And so, but see, that's the thing. If we keep our head into the information and not so much into the petty emotional back and forth,
I see what you're saying. Right, I get you.
Then those type of things will stick out. It'll stick out like a sore thumb. You can tell the difference. You can tell by the nomenclature that's being used, because you'll be fastened into what is real. Like, what is the real discussion? What are the real issues? What's being said? So when people get out of off code, they call it on code, off code. When people are off code, it stick out like a sore thumb. You're like, wait a minute, something fishy about this. Like,
I always bring them back. This conversation is about generational wealth. It's not about colorism. It's not about this A, B, and C. It's about generational wealth. That's what this. Let's stay focused.
It's about reparative justice. It's about getting something. And I did a video. It's actually on my YouTube channel right here. I did a video explaining what reparations is, because people, most people say reparations, they think money, and reparations is more than money. Money is only one component out of 5 that reparations is part of. It's the compensation, but you have 4 other elements of reparations. So people got to understand that. So it's not all about cutting a check or whatever, because that's gonna shrink the issue down to just cutting a check. Think that's gonna fix things. No, that's why the Black agenda is advocating prescriptions and policies. Because even if and this is the problem that we're having with the Democrats right now, because historically, Black now hold up, I'm gonna back up to this apolitical attitude that we have, right? Those of us who do participate in the elections, when most of us go to the election and cast our votes, we will cast a vote for somebody's name that we are familiar with. So like if on a presidential election, we will most likely be familiar with who's running. and then we'll know that, and we'll pretty much know who we're going to vote for. But then you have to vote for a whole bunch of other people that you've never investigated, never looked into, don't know what their agendas are, their policies are, or plans, or anything like that. So what we've done traditionally is that we'll just vote for anybody who is Democratic or somebody who we think is black. Though, like if you were to ask the average person, that's how most people vote. If they're gonna vote blindly, you know, and so that's not good. We're voting out of ignorance. So ADOS is actually, you know, advocating people to become politically literate, to find out what these people are have planned. Go ahead.
ADOS is pretty much the Tea Party of the Democratic Party. That's in a nutshell. It's pretty much like the Tea Party was for the Republican Party years ago. The ADOS is pretty much it's like the Tea Party of that, because they got disenfranchised with the Republican Party at one time. They broke off and was trying to refine things. That's pretty much how I'm not speaking for the movement, but that's just how I see it. It's like a radical, you know, Tea Party type on the Democratic Party side.
Yeah,
you know? And I like the fact that, well, there's another show that does talks about ADOS, and that's the Advice Show. If anybody have ever listened to the Advice Show, it's on YouTube. But they are actually asking these senators and these House members, the ones that are coming up for re-election, they're asking them questions, and specific questions. What are you going to do for ADOS? And they interview like Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, and they basically saying they ain't gonna do nothing. There's no agenda. There's nothing. They're not gonna do anything for a black agenda. There's not gonna be anything done. No policies created for a black agenda. But when you talk about Black America or a black agenda, they say, well, we're going to talk about the benefits for the community. But when you talk about any other group, they'll talk about the LGBT or immigrants or white women or Hispanic communities. They talk about them specifically. But when you ask them about a black agenda, they like, well, what we going to do is going to benefit. If it's going to benefit the regular class of people, all Americans, then it'll be beneficial for the blacks because they are so far behind. That's a bunch of crap.
And see, that's important. And let me share this. I'm gonna share my screen again. This is coming from ADOS101.com website. All right, and this is the point that's raised on the website in the Black Agenda. So all I did was go to the website and I clicked on the Black Agenda. So this is the page I'm on. So if you have never seen this, anybody who's listening, make sure you go to the website and read it for yourself. So I'm just only going to discuss a point here. And so this first bullet point here, before we get to that first bullet point, it says, we demand a new deal for Black America, which includes but is not limited to. And then it goes through different bullet points. So this first bullet point speaks to what you were just saying. It says, we need set-asides for American descendants of slavery, not minorities, which is a throwaway category which includes all groups except white men. That categorization has allowed Democrats to use programs like affirmative actions as giveaways to all groups in exchange for votes. And that's exactly what you just said, David, that the Democrats for decades now, that blacks in America have traditionally or historically voted Democrat. Okay. And Democrats are supposed to be representative of the interests of black folks. But for so long now, nothing has been done to actually address specifically the reparations or the reparative issues stemming all the way from chattel slavery up until the results that we still deal with to this very day. And so how they've been able to get around that is what is saying here, because of this ambiguous category called minorities, it gives the appearance that the Democrats are doing something, but in essence, they've become, for lack of a better word, prostitutes for big money. And matter of fact, look recently, look at the CBC, which is the Congressional Black Caucus. Look at what they're focused on. And all you gotta do is follow their attention, follow what they're focused on, follow what they bring up and what comes up as headlines in terms of their activities. It's not dealing specifically with ADOS, but yet they are the Congressional Black Caucus. Okay, and so this is what ADOS, this is what Yvette, and this is what Antonio are saying. We have to put the fire to these folks. We have to ask specific things. But like, no, we don't want this all-inclusive program and policies. No, we need specific set-asides. That's why it says we need set-asides for American descendants of slavery. And so, it goes on and on. But I just wanted to point that out, that's very, very important. So we got Bernie Sanders, who understands reparations, but when he gets in front of a camera and asks specifically about reparations for ADOS, he all of a sudden is very forgetful, and he doesn't know what people mean by it or how it's going to look. Then you have Kamala Harris. You have other people who are not specifically doing things for ADOS. Even Cory Booker.
Right.
The only person who has been very specific is Marianne Williamson. She has been very specific in her support for reparations specifically for ADOS. Now, she needs to be educated more, but she's the only candidate that has gone overboard by being very, very, very specific about it, with no hesitation, no buts in her explanation or anything. She don't say this but that. No. She's like full-fledged, like, yes. She thinks it must happen in order to repair the country itself. She doesn't think the country itself can be made whole or put back on track unless it's done. So but now, and then people say, as far as her, she's a long shot and this and that as far as her campaign and stuff like that. So she's not one of the major headliners that you see, in these news clips and things, but she's running. Her with Elizabeth Warren. But go ahead.
You know what? If one of the other brothers was talking about political slavery, or the political slave institution that we're under. Slavery. When you're under slavery, what you do is you benefit the master with either your labor or sex or financially or by your entertainment. We are been demanded that we go out there and vote Democratic, and the people that are apolitical, when they go to the voting poll, they're handed this Democratic ticket. Like you said, they don't know anything about the people there. They haven't done any research on the people, but now we're asking them real questions. And then once we find out where their stance is, it's like, okay, well, if you're not going to do nothing for us, we're not going to do nothing for you. In no sense of me voting for you, you ain't going to do nothing for me. And right now, since the Republicans are running stuff or Trump is in office, hell, we've been living under that anyway. So what's the difference? So why should we vote for you?
Right, and that's a thing also that people get confused about ADOS. And I think Yvette in one of her recent videos, I don't know if it was her last one or the one before that, she clarified the fact that ADOS is not canceling any candidates. She said it's too early for that, and candidates have time. So it's all about education and advocacy. So people need to educate themselves and then advocate. And by advocating, we have to spread the issues, not the little petty sidebar back and forths that have nothing to do with anything. People mad at the acronym, like, so what? We can't babysit people, but we got to advocate the issues, and we have to stir the conversation. And the main reason why these candidates are all talking about reparations is because of ADOS movement, because you got a lot of people. It's not just Yvette and Antonio. Like they're the main, they're the brain trust of this recent thrust. But there's a lot of people and professionals that are all on board. You got William Darity, Sandy Darity, whose information is being used, to champion this advocacy. You have Derek Hamilton. You have other people like an attorney and psychiatrist, a psychologist, Dr. Tracy, I think McCarthy is her name. She has a YouTube channel that has excellent information that's strictly law. Like she's breaking down the legal aspects of it that leaves no room for any of that emotional stuff, at all. And so that's what it's about. It's about staying on course, keeping the conversation within the scope of where it's supposed to be, and not letting other people detract and take things off. And that's what's going on. You got non-ADOS people who are anti-ADOS, but they're for reparations, but they're anti-ADOS only because they're anti-Yvette.
Yeah, and it's funny, man, because it's like this train has already left the station. And the people who I see now, like this train is already going like at 50 miles per hour, and it's creeping up at 60 miles per hour, 70 miles per hour. And you got people who wasn't on the train, and now they just throwing stuff at it as it ride past. And I hope that probably this time next year that some of these stupid conversations and arguments kind of done with, because the grown people who want to move forward are going to keep moving forward. Because this is for grown folks. It's not for 125th Street debate material foolishness. This is for grown folks, man. So I'm hoping that we can get. I'm glad this call is taking place, but I'm hoping that those peripheral discussions will just go away, because they're not going to stop this train. It's already has left like 2 years ago.
Exactly, 2016. It's already on the tracks. It's already moving. Every now and then you got the highway intersection where the railroad track bars come down. That's where people stand there trying to throw eggs at the train, but the train is like it's going to keep on moving, and people have to understand that. And people who are on the train can't be distracted by those eggs that are trying to be thrown at the train as well. So we got to look out for that, and we got to look out for people trying to lay on the train tracks. So we got people who are trying to sabotage things that are impersonating ADOS, all on Twitter and stuff. I've seen it myself. I've seen it myself. And in one particular instance, Yvette and Antonio had to address it. Like I said, that website that came up like a tribal registry. Like nah, that's not us. We don't know. So
Can I make a quick comment about the Democratic Party too, about the plantation?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I came to notice is that it's just that I think blacks are just breaking away from northern whites, because it seemed like we just vote with northern whites, because when northern whites was Republicans, like with Abraham Lincoln, we voted Republican. Then when the northern whites switched to Democrats, we started voting Democratic, and that just all comes from the slavery, the Civil War. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think we felt like a loyalty to northern whites because they helped freed us from the southerners.
Well, that's a good point, and that's why people need to understand the history of the political parties, the Republican Party and Democratic Party, and
I'm just putting that out there because I see a lot of like black conservatives. They make it seem like we just stupid and we just vote like I mean it's it had a history that why we vote with northerners over the southerner whites or over the southern whites.
Yeah, but and that's what I was saying. It goes back to understanding the history of the party and what you just mentioned, the switch. So there was a historical switch, and so
right.
and we vote, and we've traditionally for decades now voted Democratic because
right. But it no matter what we're going to vote with northerners. Like if the all the northern whites started to vote independent, the blacks will vote independent. Like we just follow what the northerners do. Well, if you look at the history of our voting pattern,
and that's the thing. But now with this particular movement, it's like I said, we're
going out for ourselves. We getting our own agenda, doing our own thing.
It's education and advocacy. So it's not even really about a party at all, because it's we have historically voted Democrat, And because the Democrats have propped themselves as a party up to represent us, now we're checking them. It's like, okay,
Right.
you're supposed to represent us. This is what we want. Now we are removing that apolitical paradigm that we had. Now we are participating in government and politics. Now because of that, and now we are politically literate and competent now. Now we see that you've been running a game all this time. So now
Right.
if you want to maintain this relationship, you better,
Never.
you better bend to our pressure or blah blah blah. And that's the thing. Politicians move based on pressure, not applause. And so we got to
Right.
understand that. And so if we can't even get ourselves together on the same page with what is our demands, then we're never going to have the weight to push around. And see, politicians are moved by like the way it's currently set up is unfortunate, but money also makes these politicians do anything, and that's where you get this prostitution aspect where these people are becoming prostitutes, and they focus on wherever the money is at and not particular issues. And so all that stuff has to change, and that's what this movement is about. It's about we're raising the awareness all the way across the board, while having the data to back it up, and at the same time,
That's why it's
demanding.
powerful because of the data. Can't nobody, no one can refute the data. That the only thing they can do is resort to other like personal attacks. They can't nobody refute the data.
Exactly. And so, and this movement is a walk and chew gum at the same time type of movement. Unlike what people think, it's like this or that. No, it's a lot of things going on at one time, and people just got to stay on code. People got to stay on track, and keep pushing. But it's really important to educate yourself because it could be confusing real quick because politics in and of itself is a monster in and of itself. So people got to really do the homework. They really got to do the homework and understand the issues. Everything has a cause. Like our condition overall on a macro level and trickles down to the micro has causal agents, has causalities. And until you tease it out and trace it back to the causal elements, then we're always going to be confused. And so this is what the movement is doing as well. It's allowing us to see the data and to trace back the causes of a lot of our current situations from a macro to a micro level. And yeah, go ahead.
No, well, I like how you said also we can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time because I'll just say use me as an example again. I see a lot of people who have issues with the movement. They're serial entrepreneurs, bootstrappers, and I'll be guilty. That was me at one time. I was one of those bootstrapping people who just thought business was everything. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do business. But I feel like I'm at a certain place in my life. I'm successful, but it's not enough for me by myself to be that. And then the data that Antonio shows, we have to do something on a collective level because it's just not enough for you to be one successful person. When you be the person that's taking care of most of your family, if you be the one person that makes it. So that was a personal art for me also to learn to get more into the collective part because I was very self-absorbed and just bootstrap entrepreneur, get my money, get the bag. And I'm like, that's the people who I see the naysayers. A lot of those people don't want to deal with idiocy because it's a collective thing. They don't want to play nice with everybody. So they want to sell you on some type of package or a plan that's going to liberate you. And I'm like, that's a problem also in our community. We have too many capitalist vampires that feed on our lower class and they look like us, so
yeah.
That's
Joe,
Oh yeah,
could you break down for the people that are here, because I try to explain this to other people that the reparations is just not money. It's the things that they're asking for, the things that we lost, like stolen land. We lost opportunities, and then because of the redlining, we couldn't get housing or loans or things like that. But some of the things that they're asking for, like we're asking for, is like free healthcare, loans, no taxes, free college education, things like that. Could you explain those
Okay.
parts of reparation?
Yeah. I was gonna say something first before that. I think somebody. Somebody asked about HR 40 in the chat. So I want to make sure that we definitely talk about that. So we'll do that right after. So in terms of reparations, if anybody wants to know, okay, let me put this back on my screen so people can see it while I'm talking about it. So again, this is the website. This is the official website, ADOS101.com. All right. This is on the page called the Black Agenda. All right. Now, on this Black Agenda, there are bullets, and it says these are demands. Okay. And so it includes these bullets, but it's not limited to these bullets. So obviously there are going to be some things added to this later. But this will give you a definite ballpark area of what's being advocated. And this is called the Black Agenda or the agenda, but this is not an agenda that we as ADOS can carry out or execute. This agenda is a prescription or agenda for congressmen, the legislative branch of government, to actually execute. So this is an agenda for government, not ADOS particularly. Like, we can't do these things. This is our demands for the legislative branch of government to do. Okay, so that has to be understood first, because the reason why I say that is because people are looking at this agenda and asking the question, well, how do y'all plan on carrying it out? How do y'all plan on doing this and doing that? Not even knowing that these are things that we're not going to do. These are things that we're demanding the government officials to do, the politicians, the congressmen, the lawmakers to do, to put into legislation to do. We can't do it. We're not duly elected senators and House of Representatives. We're not reps and senators. Okay, those are the lawmakers. So we're advocating and pressuring them to do this stuff. All right, so I want to make that clear first. And so what you were talking about, David, is if anybody goes to the website and look at these bullet points, they'll see what is being demanded. Okay, and like I said, it says that it's included but not limited to these things. So let's just quickly go through them, right? The first bullet, actually, even the naysayers, the anti-ADOS folks, even when they read this, they don't disagree with most of these bullet points. The only bullet point that really gets everybody to arguing and fussing is this first one. And it mostly comes from black immigrants, people from the Caribbeans, basically. And so I'm going to read it, and you're going to see why there's a big fuss about it. So it says, we need set-asides for American descendants of slavery, not minorities, a throwaway category which includes all groups except white men. That category has allowed Democrats to use programs like affirmative actions as giveaways to all groups in exchange for votes. The bribery must end. That begins with a new designation on the census with ADOS and another for black immigrants. So this answers the question to the sister, I think it was Karen Bell in the chat, when she asked about the census. So this is something that's being demanded. Okay, this is not in place yet, but it's something that's being demanded. But at least in the 2020 census, there is a change already. Okay, so that's why I pointed out earlier. So that's a demand. Now, this becomes a problem. So now people are asking, well, why are you trying to separate from black immigrants? We all black. We all suffer. It don't matter. Like, if we get pulled over by police, it don't matter. They ain't going to check and ask you, are you ADOS or are you a black immigrant? Nah, they're going to treat us all the same. That's the argument that people are making. And see, that doesn't have anything to do with this reparative justice claim. Yes, that happens today, but it's not. It has no stake or interest or standing in the reparative justice. We're talking about something from chattel slavery all the way up to 1952. Okay, that's what people have to understand. All right, before the mass immigration in the 1980s and all that kind of stuff. We're talking about before all of that. All right. So anyway, that's what that says. And then now here's where it really, really got to people. It says black immigrants should be barred from accessing affirmative action and other set-asides intended for ADOS as should Asians, Latinos, white women, and other minority groups. Now, if you read all of this together, it makes sense. Nobody should be mad. But what happens is, for whatever reason, people's reading comprehension or it's just their emotion, polarized. They're only reading even part of the sentence. They're reading this, and they stop right here. No, actually, they stop right here. I've actually heard and seen people do that. They will look at this and read just what I got highlighted. They'll say, black immigrants should be barred from accessing affirmative action and other set-asides. They'll act like there's a period right there. And then they'll get mad. They're like, well, what? Wait a minute. But they don't continue and say that it should be barred from accessing affirmative action and set-asides for who? The ones that are intended for ADOS. See, that's not going on right now. Everything is all mixed together in this big, broad category called minorities. And so the argument is that we need set-asides specifically for ADOS. And then it goes on to say that everybody should be excluded or barred from accessing those set-asides that are intended for ADOS. It just mentions black immigrants first, but then it mentions the other ones, Asians, Latinos, white women, and other minority groups. You see? But we got black immigrants that got uptight and start fussing about this when it's nothing to fuss at.
They're really trying to generalize the issue.
Right. It doesn't right, exactly. They don't understand. I mean, this is basic, reading comprehension really. And it's really sad, but that's what's happening. So then to continue, it says, in addition, ADOS hiring and employment data must be demanded for all businesses receiving tax credits, incentives, and governmental support, as well as all governmental agencies, national, state, and local. It is our belief that this will show that there are minimal, if any, ADOS professionals in the fields, including, but not limited to, engineering, medical, legal, and tech. And so basically this last bit is basically demanding transparency because right now, under this broad category of minorities, they're able to play. They're able to be bribed. They're able to help give the appearance of helping ADOS along with everybody else, but never, ever addressing the actual damage, which is stemming from chattel slavery all the way up to, Jim Crow. And after that, you got redlining, convict leasing, sharecropping, all that kind of stuff. They're never addressing the damage from that. You see what I'm saying? So that's all in bullet 1. Bullet 2 says, once affirmative action is streamlined, which is all this up here, as a government program which offers the protection, only and specifically for ADOS, the program should be fully reinstituted. Because you got to understand, see, people need to research the history of affirmative action. Affirmative action, for those who don't know, the gist of it is affirmative action started with President Kennedy. He's the first one to use that phrase, the actual phrase, affirmative action. And all it means is positive action. That's all it means. It means positive action should be taken. And Kennedy was saying to government agencies that affirmative action should be taken to basically cure an issue of discrimination. And it was originally targeting or to solve an issue, a current issue at that time with African Americans or Negroes or coloreds. That's what it was originally intended for. But over time, because the language was vague and ambiguous and stuff like that, and after these executive orders from Kennedy, and then you had Johnson come along after, then we had this minority where we had this all-inclusive attitude, and that's what we're complaining about. We're like, no, you just threw a Band-Aid. You just gave us a Band-Aid, and that's what the problem is. So anyway, just to go on, because I want to go through it quickly. So next one says the Supreme Court decided wrongly when it gutted the Voters' Rights Act. As the Atlanta Journal-Constitution article, "It's time to solve the mystery of the 100,000 mystery votes," indicates, the protections outlined in the Voting Rights Act are essential to protecting the rights of ADOS in America. Reinstituting reinstituting the protections of the Voting Rights Act is a key part of our agenda. That's plain and simple. That's not money. None of these are money so far. Next. Black businesses only received 1.7% of 23 billion in total SBA loans under President Obama's SBA, after having previously received 8.2 under President George Bush. So under Obama, black businesses 1.7. Under Bush, black businesses 8.2. That's a big difference. Succeeding as an entrepreneur requires capital, so our agenda demands that 15%, which is greater than Obama and Bush, of SB loans be distributed to ADOS businesses. And the 15 is not an arbitrary number, because 15% of the United States population is roughly ADOS. All right, so that's demographically sound. All right. Next, we seek a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure plan targeted to ADOS communities, including but not limited to the Black Belt, Flint, Michigan. A Reuters examination published in 2016 found that 3,000 cities with poisoning rates higher than Flint. So this is basically infrastructure. All right. Residents of major ADOS areas have been poisoned under the federal, local, and state government's watch. So as not only Flint, Michigan, but Denmark, South Carolina, and others must be financially compensated for the benign neglect of the Environmental Protection Agency and the government in general. The Justice Department must also institute protections which exact heavy fines and federal criminal prosecution for future offenders. Then it addresses mass incarceration. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing. Like I said, this is the website. People could read it. So it talks about mass incarceration. Then it goes to black colleges, HBCUs in this next bullet. Then it goes to, what is this one? This is talking about jobs. Next one is bank patterns of loaning patterns, lending patterns, and so on and so forth. And I know I'm going through this fast because I don't want to sit here and just read what everybody else can read, because maybe one day people can have already read it and then we could discuss it. So I don't want to read it to people for the first time, because then that's like a whole show in and of itself, and I don't mind doing that. Actually, we did that before I did that on I was one of the people that did that on another channel. But I want to go to the bottom though, because this ties into the sister's question about HR 40. Now, mind you, these are bullet points, and none of these bullet points have numbers. But I've seen people argue that reparations is at the bottom, and they say that to say that reparations is at the bottom of the list, like it's a fleeting thought, and that's just not true. The entire ADOS advocacy movement culminates with reparative justice, reparations. That is the one thing that will allow us to be made whole again. All right. So by it being last on this list does not mean it's last in terms of numerical order, because there's no numbers. These are bullets. But anyway, it says America has never atoned for its original sin of slavery in the form of reparations. It is our position that HR 40 be passed. And there's a clickable links. Everything in red is a clickable link. All right. So people need to read HR 40. It says, and additional supportive measures implemented. We need to gather the data on the level of wealth that was lost as a direct result of slavery and the era of Jim Crow that followed. In a paper, 40 Acres and a Mule of the 21st Century, economist Sandy Darity of Duke University assessed the value today as, and then he gives his assessment. Okay. And then it goes on to say that ADOS demands that there be a real review of direct payouts needed to be made to eligible recipients from gathered data, and progress be made towards making ADOS families whole. So that is what people home in on, money. All right. But as you can see, all these other bullet points up here is not a check. They're not asking for a check in any of these other bullet points. So on one hand, people think it's all about money, but then on the next hand, they say, okay, the money part of it is last. You like in other words, people saying, "Oh man, all ADOS folks, man, all they want is a handout. All they doing is begging for money, begging for money." But then they'll say, "Well, the money part of it is last. Why is it last? Why is it last?" It's like you damned if you do, you damned if you don't with folks.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a clear way to see if a person is educated on this is if they go to start the conversation off with a check. They start talking about a check. It's like, no, reparations is more than that's a check.
Definitely more than a check. And like I said, I encourage people to read this because I don't, I'm in anything I do, I don't want people to stop at me because I'm just like everybody else. I will work with people, but I don't want people to stop at me. So this is the website. Read it for yourself, digest it, read it more than once. Don't do like other people and take read bites. I can't even say sound bites, but take sentence bites, clauses bites out of this. Like I've seen people literally do this where I have highlighted. They'll say black immigrants should be barred from accessing affirmative action as other set asides, and then they'll have a whole conversation based on just that, not realizing that this whole paragraph is a fluent paragraph. It's talking about what Democrats do to give the fake appearance as if it is working on behalf of its constituents, which is Black America. And it's not. We are being fooled and bamboozled, and it has to stop. That's why it says the bribery must end. That's it. And then people arguing like, why is ADOS fussing at Democrats and not the Republicans? And it's crazy because Democrats is supposed to represent us rather than the Republicans. So you're going to go to the people who are supposed to be on your side first and make them do what they're supposed to do. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, it happens in households every time with children and two parents. You got a child who wants something. The child goes to one parent. I mean, the child is going to go to the parent that they think is going to say yes. Anybody that has children knows this for a fact. Your children are going to go to the mother or the father, one of the parents that they think is going to be the easiest first. That's going to be their first choice, hands down. I don't care who you are or whatnot. Your child is going to go.
Brother, question I want to ask.
Okay.
I want to ask a question about HR 40. I looked it up and I heard Tone Talks talking about it, and I noticed it was on the ADOS agenda, but I never really seen it said. Is that when I looked it up, it was HR 40 was to study reparations, and it was brought to Congress 30 years ago. Was it 1989 by John Conyers from Detroit?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of had a problem with it, being used as something to catapult back from the idea of what we're doing. Like it's to study reparations, but it's definitely seed. But I just wanted to ask you about that because as you were speaking, I know you described it in another way. Is that the same thing that I'm talking about? HR 40 to be studied is put there to study reparations.
Ujawu.
Yeah.
From what he was saying, from my knowledge, HR 40 is just as you said, it's to do the study, and it's supposed to be going to the House, and that's where they're having a problem. They can't even get it to go through the House as a study. This is not the reparations, but it's all of the stuff that's listed there for them to do the work, to study it, to see how viable everything is in it. That's my understanding of it.
Okay, so what I have on my screen is HR 40 itself. All right, so you can go to congress.gov and then look up HR 40. But now you have to keep in mind that HR 40 has been introduced ever since 1989. So it's been 30 years since its first introduction. So you got to make sure you go to the most current submission of it, which is what I have on my screen right now. And you'll clearly see it says January 3rd, 2019. So when you search for it, make sure you have the one for that date. Okay. And then you read it. This is the actual bill. All right.
Right.
And so when you read it, you'll understand. And this is something that when I first discussed this on Dagger Squad channel, there were people that thought HR 40 was reparations. And we had to clarify and tell people that no, HR 40 is simply a piece of legislation. It's a bill that, if passed, it is going to establish a congressional committee with the right funding in order to rigorously study the effects of slavery and to propose a remedy. And I'm basically summarizing it. That's what this bill is about. It is not reparations itself. It is a bill to establish funding for a congressional committee to be formed, so that this committee can therefore study slavery and its effect on African Americans, and then offer proposals for a remedy for it. Now, this is the thing. Now, what can happen is that HR 40 be passed. Let's say it's passed and this committee is formed. Okay. What can happen is that now they can procrastinate. They could study it and say, okay, it's going to take 15 years for us to study this thing, in 15 years or 20 years, they could procrastinate. So, but guess what? ADOS advocacy, the people in this movement now, we got people doing the work. So we're not waiting for Congress to do the work. We're actually doing the work. So you got William Darity, who is a PhD. He's an economist. He's done the research, done the number crunching, and it's still ongoing. You got both Antonio and Yvette. You got somebody, Derek Hamilton, and you got others. Okay, so the work is being done. So if this bill is passed, then by us advocating and plugging in and participating in politics, we can actually shorten the time span and not let them off the hook. We don't allow them to procrastinate. So again, this bill is only to set up a committee. And if you go to the bottom, it tells you, it says, to carry out the provisions of this act, we are authorized to be approximated $12 million. So remember, a lot of politics has to do with the budgeting of money on different policies and programs. And so this committee is asking for 12 million to be able to form itself and to function and to do the necessary research. That's at the very, very bottom, section 8. $12 million to actually put this committee together and so on. So if you read it, read it on your own time. But in summary, that's what it is. It is basically to set up a committee to investigate and research the effects of slavery and propose a remedy to it. And so now I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, no, I was just going to chime in real quick. I was just going to go back to the local level also, because we would highly benefit to have someone from the House to continue, like somewhat like AOC, Ocasio-Cortez, or somebody who came from, who's kind of like a what's that word? A disruptor. It would benefit us to have someone in this space in Congress to continue to disrupt for this advocacy, for this bill and for things to push for us. And that ties back to what I was saying earlier with the local. If we get local candidates, that's another way we could do. We can get them into the House from a local level to advocate for us also, as a senator or either in the House or either or both, but I think we're gonna need that also. We're gonna have to have somebody in that space that can continue to aggravate and agitate for us as a lobbyist or as a congressman to get this bill, to get this stuff moving. So
yeah.
That's been the problem. The problem is, and this is why we're doing interviews with all of these ones that are running for the House of Representatives, and that the problem is we've been asking for years, and they It like they're voting no. We're not doing that. So that's why we're saying now, what's your agenda when you wanna run for House for each state? What are you gonna do? If you're not gonna push HR 40, I'm not voting for you. And you can get your locals to say, hey, you need to be listening to your people here and do the right thing.
Yeah, and another thing I want to point out too, and this is for those people I mean, listen, people who don't like ADOS, they're gonna reach uh into other planets to try to find a reason not to like ADOS. So trust me, we haven't heard the end of it. So people are gonna just make up some stuff. So for those people who have a problem with the ADOS advocacy being targeting Democrats, that shows that people are not familiar with the politics of the last few decades and historically how black folks have voted democratically. And so what that means is that Republicans feel and actually behave without our vote. In other words, Republicans don't really need our vote. It's the Democrats that do, and they know it. So this is the what do you call it? I don't want to say surrogate, but this is the kind of relationship we have to these two parties. Our relationship to the Republican Party is that they don't need us. Our relationship to the Democratic Party is that they do need us. Okay, so we have weight in the Democrat side and not so much in the Republican side. All right, and I'm speaking in general. And so this is why we targeted Democrats, because historically they're supposed to represent the interests of African Americans or black people in America. And so this is why, Democrats are being brought up in these conversations so much. And so if you look at HR 4, let me go back to it real quick. Where I put it. Where'd it go? Right here. Okay, so if we go back to HR 4, let me read this first paragraph because I should have done this because this summarizes what it is. So what is HR 40? The HR is for House. It's introduced in the House. All right. The 40 is symbolic for the 40 acres and a mule. All right. So for those who may not know that. So it says to address the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery in the United States and the 13 colonies. So you see that distinction there? In the United States and the 13 colonies. This is why I say colonial and United States of America chattel slavery. See, so we got to be very specific. And then it gives a year between the years of 1619 and 1865. Now, this 1865 should be extended to 1952. Okay, and this is part of the political process where a bill is introduced and then the amendments are made and so on and so forth. But if we don't participate in politics, we're not going to get anything amended. We're not going to make these adjustments and fine tune this thing. So anyway, that date should be pushed forward. Okay, but it's talking about slavery between those two dates though. Okay, which is accurate because slavery officially supposedly ended in 1865. All right. It says, and to establish a commission to study and consider a national apology and proposal for reparations for the institution of slavery, its subsequent de jure and de facto racial and economic discrimination against African Americans, and the impact of these forces on living African Americans. Here is where ADOS comes into play, even though it didn't use the term. Mind you, Senator John Conyers introduced this in 1989 first. Okay, so it's not going to have the language of ADOS in here or anything like that. All right, so I just want to make that clear. But this is what it's talking about: living African Americans. Okay, to make recommendations to Congress on appropriate remedies and for other purposes. All right, so that's what this bill is for. All right, that's a good summary. The overall summary is repeated right here within the bill itself. These are exact same wording within the bill, and then it goes through section by section. All right, so people can read it. All right, and if you read it, it's 100% in alignment with ADOS movement. So what I don't get is you got people that will say they are for HR 40, but against ADOS, the movement, and they run hand in hand. They fit like a nice tight glove. It fits like a nice tight glove. So you know. But
and when you go on that actual bill, you'll be able to see there's only 29 co-sponsors, and that's like 18 states. Like California has three reps, but you know a few of them have a three. New York has 5, but out of all of the ones that are in the House, only 20. They only got 29 co-sponsors. So that's why and that's on the Democratic side. That's why we got to do the push.
Yeah. So right now we didn't have 29 at first. Matter of fact, these at the bottom are a direct result of the ADOS advocacy. Look at the dates from February.
23. Said it includes 23 originals.
Yeah, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here at the bottom, and possibly 6 because this is a late January date. So you got the original submission January 3rd, and you got all those original people. Then you got 6 people after that. So out of 29, you got 23 original signatures on this as a co-sponsor. Then you got 6 additional folks. And Representative Ayanna Pressley is the most recent one. That was not too long ago. Actually, you know, that was tweeted all around and everything. She's 100% in support of this. Okay. And as a matter of fact, today, Shirley Lee Jackson, I believe. Yeah. I said Shirley, excuse me. Sheila Lee Jackson is the representative that because you know John Conyers have retired. He's retired now. So Sheila Lee Jackson is the one that has submitted it for this year, and I believe also last year. She did something today, and I missed it. She did something today where she was talking about this HR 40, and it was all over Twitter and everything like that. She made sure she told people that she's all for it. It needs support and needs to be backed and blah blah. So we're gonna see this work week and see what happens.
And I think for the for the ADOS people, for us, we need to hit up our local. Cause I think my guy's on here also, Lacey Clay from Missouri. I think he's already on. Did you see? Let me scroll down.
Let me see if is it in alphabetical order? No, it's not in alphabetical order. So you said what's last name again?
Clay.
Okay, I see Clark.
C-L-A-Y.
Clay.
I don't see anybody on here from Missouri.
Nah, no, there's no Clay.
Yeah, nobody's on there from Missouri, period.
Oh, he was on there. Okay, I need to get on him about this. This is what I need to. Us here, we need to get on our state, get on our representative.
Right.
And that's what we should spend our time doing. Like, I can't be arguing with nobody about crazy stuff. Like, no, let me holler out my representative about this.
Exactly. And see, the thing is, and notice what you just said. Now you've taken time to educate yourself on the issues. So that's why Yvette and Antonio emphasize education first and then advocacy. Educate, advocate. Educate, advocate. Because even if you do reach your let's say you get a chance to talk to your state representative within Congress or whatever, or you plan to write a letter or email or make a phone call, like we can't have any ignorant folks making these calls and stuff like that. So everybody has to be educated on the issues and things.
Right.
And you know, all that has to take place, and they have to see us as weight.
Yep.
As a block.
Yep. That would be ideal for. He has a voting block here that puts him in every term.
Exactly.
Blindly. So he need to see this block become an ADOS block where it's like, hold on.
Right.
We can put you in.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what time is it? All right, it's 1:12. I don't want to go beyond 1:30. So, you know, I want to kind of start dialing back, because I'm gonna keep this conversation going. So I'm gonna have several conversations where we can address you know, different things, different aspects of the ADOS movement and the naysayers and everything. So, so I'm just letting, I guess, putting you all on notice that I want to. So we got 15 minutes left to kind of get it in some more. But before we do, I do want to talk about or bring up something else that the naysayers are saying. So, if any of you all have heard anything that we can talk about within the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something that is problematic for people, because the whole thing is that we need as much support as we can. And I did a poll on Facebook. I asked a simple question. I said, do you, something to the effect of, do you agree that reparative justice is due to ADOS? Basically, African Americans who are descendants of slavery victims. And everybody who answered that said yes. And for the life of me, I don't understand for people to agree with that, but then disagree when those same folks who are living descendants of slavery victims are advocating that. How can people be against them but be for the idea of reparations? And to me that's crazy. So there's a disconnect there. And so what is the disconnect? And so that's what I want to kind of probe and get into. I know one is the fact of people like to pick on Yvette because she's one of the co-founders, and because one, she's light skinned, so she's too light for some folks. The idea that she possibly is a lesbian, people are going around and using that as an excuse. I know Irritated Genie did a whole 30-minute video, not even supporting his claim at all. He claimed that the ADOS movement is a front for the LGBT agenda. And that to me was crazy. I don't see how anybody could watch his video and agree with that, because he never supported his claim. That's a heavy claim. And
and besides being, the first thing was out, and it was, we were bots. They were bots. They were from Russia.
Yeah. That was the first widespread claim to discredit. See, all of these things are used to discredit the movement.
But I just want to pick at Irritated Jenny for a second. He made that. He said that, but you're advocating for your straight back pride thing. Okay, that's fine. You have no legislation though to solidify your movement. You have no plan, because I know that when Obama was in office, he passed all these gay laws and bathroom stuff. I get that, and that is like a kind of attack. But what's your countermeasure? Do you have any legislation that you're going to put together to try to hold Black families together, or some type of way from a national, like what are you going to, like, what? I just don't get, like, how you going to change? The LGBT went to Congress, like you said earlier. It's a budget. They talking about money there, and they lobbied for their interests to get these things passed. So why don't you, like, okay, where's your movement? And I would support it if you get a bill, get somebody to represent, and go and put something together to help with the movement you're doing. I'll support that. But these people are lazy. They don't want to do nothing but give inflammatory speeches and talk.
Very ironic. That's very ironic.
Yeah. Now the problem I have with that mentality is not even about Irritated Genie, the person. It's that mentality is the fact that people like that, they use a person's sexual orientation as a litmus test. And that's very problematic, because, like, he even said out of his mouth that any new organization or any new movement that pops off, or anything that pops off new, investigate and find out their sexual orientation and use that as a litmus test. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but all people gotta do is go to his video and listen to it yourself, and you'll see that's what he indeed is saying. So he's using it as a litmus test. Now, this is the thing. He made a bold claim. He said that the ADOS movement is a front for the LGBT agenda. And then in the video, all he really did was re-emphasize what he always does, is his stance on homophiles, as he calls them, or homophilia. All right, and the fact that he doesn't support it at all. He's like anti homosexuality on steroids. He has he has a movement called War on the Horizon and Straight Black Pride. And everything he does, he uses the sexual orientation as a litmus.
Right.
And that's cool. Like he could do himself, but my problem with his video and everything is his claim that he never supported. Like everybody has a right to make a claim. I'm just looking for the support. Like demonstrate support, provide the evidence for your claim, and he never did.
None.
None.
That's
Absolutely.
that's like saying all blacks are stupid. He's like a crab in a barrel. You see somebody else getting out, and he want to pull them back down.
Okay.
It's all based on hearsay from Boyce Watkins video like what last year or so, and Yvette already addressed that.
Yeah, Yvette addressed that too, and that's what I'm saying. So it's
But they don't deal with the data though. Like they don't.
They can't. That's what I was saying earlier. They can't deal with the data, so they resort to personal attacks. Don't nobody address the wealth gap or that our median wealth will be zero by 2053. They don't. It's like we supposed to just ignore that and just say, "Oh, she might be a lesbian, so let's just forget everything."
Exactly, and that's crazy because ADO at the movement, that's irrelevant to the movement. Period. That's like you could be rich or poor, you could be light skinned, dark skinned, you could be a male or female. None of that stuff matters in this reparative justice claim. But hey, before we go, I do want to address the sister Jolanda is in the chat, right? And I know that she's recently been doing some political work. Not for ADOS specifically, but I know, like she just said, I just lobbied, and I've been asked to coordinate another lobby pool for education initiative focusing on our children in the state of Florida. And so that speaks to what you were saying as far as local politics. And see, if we don't engage in politics, it is so insane for us to have this attitude of we're going to live in a country but never participate in the politics of the country, knowing that politics actually affect our lives. Politics and these lawmakers, because see, this is the thing. We complain about law, about the enforcement of laws, like how judges rule and how police been getting off and all this other kind of stuff. But we never think to position ourselves in the position to actually create or amend or change the laws themselves. We argue over the symptoms or the side effects of laws, but never the cause. So if we don't like the way things are, we have to address it at the causal level, which is at the legislative level.
Right. I give you a good example of that too. State of Colorado had a ballot initiative, recreational marijuana. They put a ballot initiative together and got on the ballot, voted for it, and
exactly.
Come on, these are the people of Colorado.
Exactly.
And we've been criminalized so many years over this. We've been criminalized over that particular plant drug, and it's like, no, we should be doing that. We should be putting together ballot initiatives to get put on the ballot, to get voted on, to make it legal, and for other things to free people and expunge charges or whatever. We can do that. We have the power to do that. You can't be apolitical. We can do it.
Now that's a good example. So we as a people, black people in America, have been negatively affected by marijuana. You would think that those people who are most negatively affected by it would think to have initiative to try to change the law on the legislative level, but yet it wasn't us. It was somebody else, and then it started with a seed in Colorado, or I guess that was the first state. And then it started trickling in other states, and now it's at the federal level to where these candidates are mentioning it. So now that is a candidate conversation. That is a conversation during the campaign. That's a campaign conversation now. That's an issue. That's a major issue. And all of the candidates are asked that question. They're asked, how do you feel about the legalization of marijuana? So it went from a negative, bad drug to where all of us, we're getting locked up about, to a conversation for presidency. You see what I'm saying? So that right there is proof positive of the political process. So if we can't take a cue from that, then man, we might as well throw in the towel and just go to Disney World, because we don't understand that politics, whether we participate or not, is going to run the country. Like it's almost like giving somebody the keys to your car and then you just jumping in the trunk and you got to go wherever they take you. And that's what happened. We built this country. We handed over. We're continually handing over the keys to this country by our neglect and our apolitical stance. That's essentially what we're doing, and it's got to change. And that's what ADOS, the movement, is doing. And people don't like it, but it's just too bad because the paradigm has to shift. And it's crazy for us to just be in this country and not participate. Like this idea of African. And I did want to talk about that before we go, but let me see what time we got. Because I want to end on 1:30 and we are okay. We got 6 minutes. So this idea of African, right? African, we use it for so long and for so much that it's become a safety blanket, like what's that character on Charlie Brown? Yeah, Linus with that safety that baby blanket, that safety blanket. This idea of African has become our safety blanket, because if you really think about it, when we say things like I am of African descent, like we say it all the time, we say I am of African descent, but what does that really mean? What it means is that we have recent ancestry that comes from the continent of Africa, and up until AfricanAncestry.com and people taking DNA tests, we couldn't even pinpoint, and still it's kind of rough and iffy even to this day, pinpoint a nation, a polity over in Africa. So we got identified with a whole entire continent. We say, okay, I got African ancestry, but that is an anthropological discussion and context. That's not legal, legislative, or political. You can't use that language. So this is what people don't understand. And so when we say that we are American, that's what we are. That's what's on our passports. That's what we're a citizen of this country. We participate in the census. This is what we identify with, and the whole nine. This is what on all our government records and all this other kind of stuff. It doesn't say African on there. And even in Africa, they don't use that politically. They have nations. There's 54 nations there. And so this idea of African has spilled over into this reparative justice claim, to the point where it's an argument that people are having as an excuse not to support ADOS. They say
it don't even belong in this. It don't even belong like that. The whole Pan-African topic does not even belong in this lane. Like, why? I literally watched this whole discussion devolve into like these peripheral things, but that Pan-African, it doesn't even belong in this lane. Like, we're talking about something specific on the national level, but people bring it in as a litmus test, like you said, to see if they want to get with ADOS. They use that ideology, what I call it the cult of Africa worship, to see if they want to get down with ADOS. And I'm like, that's not the proper lens that you should be looking at this through. Like, that's just not right. So
exactly. And see, the ADOS implies it. See, it doesn't say it explicitly, but it's implicit in the name, in the acronym, because when we say we are a descendant of a victim of the institution of slavery, it's implied that the person who was a victim of slavery or put into forced servitude, labor and slavery was kidnapped from Africa. So it's already in there, but people want to see the word in there. And I'm gonna tell you, it comes from a very insecure place, because we have a problem with identity. We are so vulnerable in that area of identity that we're very insecure as a people. So if anybody feels that Africa is being taken away, then they have a problem. They react. It's an emotional reaction, and that's what people are having.
And also, I feel like it helps our public relations, because I mean, this is a fight for public relations, and using that America does remind people that we are American. Like you know what I mean. So I don't really have a problem with the American on the ADOS. I mean, because it's a public relation ploy. I mean, not I won't say it's a ploy, but it tugs at the heartstrings of white America at the same time.
Yeah, that's something that people are just gonna have to accept. It's a reality, though. It's not even like,
Yeah, right. I agree with you. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's no way for us to really even play with that. That's like a reality. And if people are denial of that reality, then they really can't afford to be in this conversation. But I'm gonna show something real quick, and this will be probably the last thing. But check this out right here. All right, so what I'm showing, when when you now I posted this on Facebook. All right, and all I did was just post it. I didn't say much about it. All I did was post it, and I wanted to see what people's reaction to it in the comments would be, and everything. And but there's the reason why I posted it is because, like I said, people are gonna reach and find any excuse not to support ADOS out of laziness, and just they don't want to shift that paradigm. You know, people are stuck in a groove. And so one person said that, like, Irritated Genie claims that the ADOS movement is a front for LGBT agenda. Well, another group of people are saying that ADOS is a bunch of integrationists. Like the ADOS movement is an integrationist movement. And when you ask them why they say that, they'll say that Yvette Carnell is holding up an American flag, or I think she had an American flag wrapped around her or behind her or something or whatever. They didn't even show the picture, but that's what they were saying. And so I put this picture up there so that people could face the reality that we are in fact American citizens. We are American, and we built this country. And the sad part is that when immigrants come over from their own country, their homeland, and they come over to America, they're coming over to America to partake in the opportunities that America has to offer. But nobody complains about that. But the moment that Americans, us as Americans themselves and our ancestors built it, the moment that we want to participate in the opportunities and hang a flag of the country that we built, everybody and their mother has a problem with it. And so I show this picture because black athletes during the Summer Olympics, when they win, and these ladies won the 400-meter relay. When they won, or any black athlete wins, they take a victory lap, and they are draped in the American flag, and nobody complained about it.
Yep.
So it just goes to show that people are picking and choosing when to be emotional and everything, and it's just a clear indication that people are using excuses not to like a movement that is not even theirs to dislike. It's crazy to me. So anyway, like I said, it's 1:30 now. So if anybody got any closing, we can make rounds, and anybody want to close out and make some closing remarks. But we're gonna have this discussion. I'm gonna keep this ongoing, right? And I'm gonna try to keep it progressive. Like, I don't want to keep repeating the same things over again. So we just gonna kind of continue the conversation at different times and everything. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you know when I'm live and everything. And I'll do the same thing. I'll put the panel link out there because I don't like talking. I don't like being the only one talking. So I like interaction. But anyway, so the floor is open. If anybody got any closing statements and whatnot, so we can wrap it up.
I'll close out real fast, just to piggyback on what you just said, not to be too long, about people not wanting to accept that we're Americans. And I heard even some people say that, oh, y'all just want to sit at the table, with the white man. And I'm like, yeah, because if I got more black men incarcerated than women incarcerated on the planet, yeah, I want to sit at that table to get these brothers out of prison. So yeah, I do want to beg a seat at the table. That's what you know what I'm saying? If that's what you're saying that we trying to do. We trying to get a seat at the table with the white man. So it's like, nah, you're not gonna try to change for being American. But anyway, thanks for the call, bro. I'll be on next time. I subscribe. I got you on my I got the thing downloaded on my phone. Conversation was good. your voice is definitely needed, bro. I'm glad you broke off and did this, man. Just keep it coming, man. And, you know, I'll be here with you, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming on board and everybody who's watching. Because, like I said, my channel, I don't have many subscribers, because I never use my channel. So hopefully, I'll get some subscribers and things like that. Because I'm not looking for subscribers just for subscription's sake. I want to have these very interesting conversations about this topic and even some other topics. Because people know me for dealing with ancient Kemet, the language, and I teach the language. And writing system and all that kind of stuff. That's what most people know me for. But I also deal with other topics like this. I deal with, many other things. And so, I'm gonna use my channel as an opportunity to kind of raise these issues and topics and have discussions with some, hopefully some bright minds. And we can have a real respectful, more thought-provoking, critical thinking type of conversation. So yeah, I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. But is anybody else that have any closing? Anything to close with?
I just want to ask you a question.
Okay.
On YouTube, is that where you are?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've been trying to find it and I just couldn't find it.
Oh, just look under my name, Wujao Iry-Maat. I think that's the name of the channel. Yep, if you type in Wujao, it should pop up. I'm so new that it's probably not even on the Google algorithm yet. But yeah, just you look for it.
Yeah, when I do that, the only thing I get is the importance of African-centered methodology, Asar Imhotep.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I am going to give you the link right now. Right here. So if you look in this chat, in where
wait a minute, it took out the W in your name. But
that's it right there. On
okay. Yeah, no, I see it.
Okay. So yeah, anybody else got anything to close with? Who else we have here? We got I can't see people's names.
I really had nothing to close with. It just I appreciate y'all, gathering together and having this conversation.
Okay, no problem, man. Hopefully, see my thing. I hope people can listen if they take time to listen to what we're saying. They could, if they had some same concerns and questions that somehow we may have clarified something. But like I said, I always give the disclaimer. I'm not a representative of Antonio or Yvette. I don't speak for the whole movement or any of that. I'm a supporter. I'm an advocate. I have educated myself. I have watched pretty much 2 years worth of videos, as much as I can of their videos since that they've had up since 2016. I watch their shows in real time when they go live every Monday and Wednesday. Because politics is something. Because the older you get too, that's another thing, is that when you're young, you really don't pay attention to politics because you're young. In your upper teens, 20s. From graduating high school up until 30, you're not really into politics like that. I mean, on average. And it's not until you start to get settled and start to when life actually starts to hit you and bang you up a little bit that you really start to look at, man, where is this coming from? And then you find out that it's not in your face. It's a causal entity that's on a macro level called government. And that's when you start to pique your interest and get involved in stuff in the politics. So I know me personally in my lifetime, that's been my journey. I never focused on politics. I was like, man, who cares? Like, you don't you don't really think about this in your 20s. Now, there are exceptions, obviously. There's people who are raised, families who focus on it and they instill it in their children at a more younger age and stuff like that. Now, my mother is an activist, or what? She's still alive, of course, but she used to be an activist in government. She was part of Big Blacks in Government, where they were handling discriminatory issues in government, hiring practices, and all this other kind of stuff. But I was young, so I didn't really pay attention to that. I just knew that's what she did. But so now I'm looking back. I'm like, wow, man, So we really need to step up our education and advocacy, even among our own. Advocate to these politicians, but we need to educate our own, you know, and get people more involved. And I think with Obama becoming president, kind of ignited that in our folks, from I guess 2008 when he was first elected or whatever the case is. I think that's what kind of got the ball rolling in terms of us starting to learn a little bit more. Like, hold up, Obama, I think we kind of attributed there and even now, up until now. So, and then Trump. The fact that Trump is president is causing people to to educate themselves. They're like, hold up, Trump can be president. Oh my gosh, anybody can be president. So let me read about this. Maybe I'll run. You know what I mean? So anyway, anybody else got something? Nope. All right. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for coming in, and like I said, I want to have these. Any topic I bring up, I like interactive discussions. I don't like to, unless I'm giving a lecture about something, then yeah, I'll just kick it and whatnot and take questions afterwards or whatever. But outside of that, I like interactive discussions. I like panel style discussions where people can be respectful. Nobody's cutting each other off, fussing, arguing, cursing each other out, and all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate that maturity and everything. So I'm gonna keep it going. And like I said, I just started this channel. Well, I started using it, and I'll just use it for that purpose. So make sure y'all subscribe if y'all listening, and hopefully I can see y'all on the panel. Now, mind you, I can have up to 100 people because Google Hangout only limits you to 10, but I'm not using Google Hangouts. I'm using Zoom, and I can have up to 100 people in here, so we can have a big panel. All right. So I want to try to bring it to that limit. Let's get a whole 100 people up in here. Have a real good talk about big round table. So let's work on that. But anyway, so again, I'm saying Pete.
Joe,
Yeah.
do you plan on doing this at specific times?
That would be better because then people can know what to expect. But right now, I don't know yet. I mean, I don't know what that time would be, but I'm gonna try to get it to that point where I can have a routine thing. But I need to build up, make sure I can have people because I don't want to be sitting here by myself.
Right. That's why I was asking. So, because if I invite people, I just want to give them a specific time or day or something like that.
Okay, I'll work on that. I'll see what would be a good time because I'll feel that out because it's kind of hard. I know Saturday night is pretty good for people because the people that kind of have this kind of conversation, that it's not going to be the same people that's going to be out partying and drinking all night. Anyway, not to say that something's wrong with that or whatever, as long as people are safe. But this kind of conversation, I think that it could probably be good to have in the evening, late evening. So I'll work on that. In the meantime, though, you can get people to subscribe though. At least they'll know if I do pop up online and live.
Okay.
Yeah, get people to subscribe and stuff. And then I take recommendations for topics because listen, one thing about me, anybody that knows me knows I don't talk about things that I don't know about. Like I will quickly become a student real fast. I ask questions and I listen. I just or whatever. So I do take recommendations for topics. If I'm not proficient in that topic, then I'll let people know, or we can invite somebody or have a nice discussion about it, and I'll get in where I fit in. But so I'm open for topics. But for now, I'm just gonna try to bring up topics that pique my interest, and just go from there. All right. So now this is a hot topic. ADOS. Listen, y'all. ADOS is not. I think one of y'all said it earlier. ADOS is not some child's play stuff. ADOS is not no 125th Street, Harlem, New York, rap battle debating type topic. This is nothing to play with. This is affecting the lives of approximately 38 million people. Oh, and that's another thing. Let me say this. Listen, y'all. Listen, when the smoke clears and everybody stop crying, right? if you really, 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 really think about it, there are approximately 40 million, 40 to 45 million black people, black folks in this country. About 7 million of those would be black immigrants. But let's not even do the separation thing. Let's just roll with the flat black. So we're going to use the number 40 million. Let's just round it to 40 million black people in America. Now, just do this. Google, let's say the state. Let me see. Let me Google something real quick. Google Alabama, right? Let me see if I can Google it real fast. See how fast I can do this. I'm trying to get the population of Alabama, the state, Alabama, U.S.
4.888 million in 2018.
Okay, 4.8. So let's round it up. Let's round up Alabama to 5 million. So there's 5 million people in Alabama. All right, let's take a state next to it. Let's take Georgia. So there's 5 million in Alabama. And let's take Georgia. Do the same thing. Quickly. Bam. Okay.
10.5 million.
What was it again?
10.5.
Oh, wow. Dang, Georgia has way more than Alabama. Okay. So Georgia has 10.5. So let's just make it 10, just to use some easy numbers. So we got 10 million and 5 million between two states. That's 15 million. And so my point is, without looking up all of them, just this southeastern block of the United States of America, if we were really bout it, as everybody wants this whole kumbaya unity thing among black people, then where is the agenda? Where is the serious plan and agenda to physically control the resources of a block of this particular country, like the Southeast region, which will include Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina. Let's just take those states right there. Let's just use those states right there. Why isn't there a mass migration or a plan, an actual plan, an actionable, realistic plan put forth for that to take place? And all of this complaining that we've done from groups out of California, Chicago, Texas, Georgia, New York, all these separate different places, complaining about gentrification, complaining about this, that, and the third, complaining about not policing our own neighborhoods, all that, everything that we've complained about. Why hasn't there been an agenda, a serious agenda for all those people to migrate and to be an entire block within this nation? Now, just to use something as a template for to support what I'm saying, so it don't seem real crazy or all out and left. Take Utah, for example. Now, it's not a racial thing, but Utah, is it Utah? I think it's Utah. It's not a racial thing, but it's a religious thing. Utah was taken over by who? Anybody tell me?
The Mormons.
The Mormons. So obviously something in their agenda, something in their execution of whatever, in their talks and their meetings and stuff like that, that was purposefully done. There's no coincidence that you're going to have a whole state taken over by one group of belief or persuasion or whatever. So why hasn't that been done? Like, seriously.
You're about to open up a whole nother can of worms, because it's been done, but it's been done on the separatist movements. We want to separate. It's not been done, but we always thought about separating. We're not a part of this. This is not ours. The Mormons didn't think that. They already claimed America as theirs, and they were able to integrate it, as you would say, seamlessly with the laws of the land, laws of the state, in order to form a political body. Our movements in the past have been separatist movements. We want to separate ourselves from the state. Even at one point, we were even talking about having the Europeans take the northern half of the U.S. and all the blacks have the South, and we're going to live separate lives. We're going to be separate, and that's a pathology, I think, that we got to shake too. But we just want to separate and do our own thing. That's just, it's not going to work.
But listen, the relationship between the state apparatus and the federal apparatus is perfect for that, because every state in this United States is a sovereign entity, with a few exceptions. They relinquish some portion of their sovereignty, like I said earlier, for in exchange for the federal protection and federal protection, whether it's military and or programs and grants and things like that. You know, states of emergency and all that kind of stuff. This is the exchange and a relationship between a state and the federal government. So if we were to take over a state as a block of people, then we would have that same relationship. So on one hand, we would be running and make our own. Remember, every state is sovereign. So the state of Georgia's laws are applicable to that jurisdiction. You can't apply Georgia's laws over in Alabama or over in South Carolina. So if we were to demographically take over a state, then we would actually have agency, and we would be able to make laws that tailor made to our interest, as well as keep our relationship and membership within the Union, the United States of America. So there's really no excuse, and the only reason why I bring this up is because when we fast forward all the arguing between what we're gonna do, we're gonna fight as one people, the whole Pan-African argument, and all this other kind of stuff. When it really boils down to it, it's like, man, we have not even begun to get ourselves together yet. In all the fighting that we have done, we still got a long way to go. And so this ADOS advocacy is changing that paradigm so we can start seeing this stuff, because people got to see it before you could do it. And that's just a basic question.
Yeah, because I wanted to say, like, even in Georgia, when they talk about all these ghost towns we can move to, there ain't nobody really talking about a caravan or anything to get to these towns. It's exactly like they want you to get there on your own, in a sense.
Exactly, because see, the thing is, if anybody does a study in it, and if anybody been watching Antonio and Yvette for any period of time, they talk about redlining. They talk about how the presence of black people in the neighborhood has actually blocked value. It's brought value down, and et cetera, et cetera. See, we wouldn't even have those kinds of conversations if we were to strategically or somehow had this agenda from a long time ago to come into fruition, to where we are taking up blocks within this particular United States and stuff like that.
That theory moves into our favor, because they know, whenever we move into a community, white folk move out. So, we all move down to Georgia, where the white folks like, we got to go.
Yeah, exactly. But we got to be careful with it though at the same time. But I, my whole point is just to throw it out there as a question. It's like a logical question. It's like all right, let's stop playing then. Like, everybody want to talk about unify, but you way up in Alaska, you way up in Maine, or you over in California, over in here, and we talking whatever. And social media has allowed us to virtually come together, but that's not how politics works. Politics, you got to have that demographic. Like the 2020 census is actually going to change the demographics for budgeting, for a lot of things. People better be up on it. You know what I'm saying? So, so anyway, I just want to leave with that, man. Just throw that out there and just think about it. People, like, we're really playing. We're really playing. Like, there's really no, like, from the 1860s, we've been desperate to move out of the South, but now it should be the reverse, because the South is conducive to us as a people. We have a lot of farmland, there's a lot of resources in the Southeast block, on to the right of Texas and below, I guess what they call the Mason-Dixon line or whatever. That should be our block as a people, because look at the so-called 5 civilized Native American tribes. When the federal government recognizes these tribes, they give them territory. They have an agreement. They have treaties and contracts and stuff about territory and lands and stuff like that. So anyway, but listen, it's going on 2:00, so I'm gonna go ahead and end now, because one of my bad habits is that I don't know how to close things down. I'll keep on talking. So let me just go ahead and thank everybody again. And yeah, we're gonna keep this going. So if you're not my friend on Facebook, inbox me or send me a friend request. If your name is different, I may not recognize your name. Just inbox me too, so I'll know who you are, and so we can all kind of keep in touch on Facebook as well. All right. So with that, I'm gonna say thanks to everybody here, and I'm gonna say peace to everybody on YouTube, and you all can stay put in here for a second, but I'm gonna end the YouTube side. So give me a second. So again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in on YouTube, and yeah, we're just gonna do it again. All right, so let me figure out how to end this. So again, peace.